Chapter 2708. Who? Seeing Qin Feiyang leave, Li Feng heaved a sigh of relief. Frankly speaking, he was still a little scared. Like a child, even if he was in his rebellious phase, he still had an innate reverence for his parents. Wait! But suddenly, Beast Emperor suddenly roared and looked down at the white bones below. Li Feng shuddered at the sudden roar, and his heart, which had just been put at ease, jumped into his throat again. Qin Feiyang and the others were also startled, and turned to look suspiciously at Beast Emperor. It wasn't common for a grand venerable beast to lose his composure like this. Beast Emperor looked at the white bones and didn't speak for a long time, but his eyes gradually filled with bewilderment. Little Lin, is there a problem? White-eyed Wolf couldn't help asking suspiciously. Beast Emperor turned a deaf ear. All of a sudden, he looked up at Li Feng and asked, "What about their souls? Did you devour them too?" No. Li Feng instinctively shook his head. But when he came back to his senses, he became angry. Why did he have to answer this person? What does it have to do with you? Swish! The Beast Emperor arrived in front of Li Feng in a single step. He grabbed Li Feng's clothes and said in a low voice, "Kid, you better tell me the truth. Otherwise, even if the young lord helps you, I'll still kill you." His tone was bone-chilling. Li Feng instantly stiffened. Madman looked at Li Feng and Beast Emperor and whispered, "It looks like something big is going on." "It looks like it to me too." Wang Ming nodded. "Speak." Beast Emperor roared, his eyes overflowing with murderous intent. Li Feng couldn't help panicking again as he shook his head. "It wasn't me, I could only devour their flesh and blood, then what about their souls?" Beast Emperor shouted. Li Feng said, "It's blood, blood spirit, blood spirit." Beast Emperor raised his eyebrows and let go of Li Feng. He turned to look at Qin Feiyang and Wang Ming and asked, "Blood spirit can devour souls?" "That's right. He will devour the souls of any living creature that dies in his hands." Qin Feiyang nodded. He already knew about this. Wang Ming also knew. Devour souls, devouring flesh and blood, sanguis. The Beast Emperor lowered his head as if he was searching for memories that had been sealed away for a long time. Qin Feiyang and the others looked at each other, their hearts full of doubts. What was going on? "It's him." Suddenly, the Beast Emperor's body shook, and then he raised his head to look at Li Feng and said, "I was wondering why it felt slightly familiar." "So it's you." "What do you mean?" "It's me." Li Feng was somewhat baffled. The Beast Emperor shouted, "Shut up, I'm not talking to you." "Then who are you talking to?" Li Feng looked at the Beast Emperor suspiciously. Suddenly, he thought of something and frowned. "Sanguis?" The Beast Emperor didn't want to see him at all. He said, "Sanguis, stop hiding. Come out. Seems like he knows the origin of the blood spirits." Madman muttered. "I'm really curious. Who exactly is this Xueling?" The white-eyed wolf grumbled. Qin Feiyang, Wang Ming, and Yang Li were also curious. Whoosh! Sanguis appeared in front of Li Feng and looked at the Beast Emperor suspiciously, as if he was also puzzled. The Beast Emperor stared at Sanguis, and a cold smile gradually appeared in his eyes. "Who exactly is he?" Qin Feiyang walked to the Beast Emperor's side and asked suspiciously. The Beast Emperor looked at Qin Feiyang, then looked at Sanguis again and said word by word, "He has a famous name, Ancestor Sanguis." "Ancestor Sanguis?" Qin Feiyang, Madman, and the white-eyed wolf were stunned. This name was actually quite awesome. "What? He's Ancestor Sanguis." Wang Ming and Yang Li exclaimed as they ran to the Beast Emperor's side and sized up Sanguis in shock. "You guys also know about Ancestor Sanguis?" Qin Feiyang looked at the two. I've heard of him, but I've never seen him. The two said. At the same time. Seeing the Beast Emperor reveal his identity, Sanguis trembled slightly. I really didn't expect that after so many years, I could still see you again. The Beast Emperor sneered, and his tone became even colder. Is there some misunderstanding? I'm not Ancestor Sanguis. I've never heard of Ancestor Sanguis before. Sanguis said. The Beast Emperor sneered. Stop pretending. I won't mistake your aura. It's just that it's been too long, and I didn't think of it before. What nonsense are you talking about? Also, who are you? Why do you say that I'm Ancestor Sanguis? Sanguis said in an impatient tone. Are you really going to play dumb? The Beast Emperor frowned and threw a punch at Sanguis. What are you doing? Sanguis retreated in shock and anger. What am I doing? Of course, I'm going to beat you until you reveal your true form. The Beast Emperor sneered and used an auxiliary technique. An invisible force that could topple mountains and overturn seas shattered the void. Seeing that he couldn't dodge, Sanguis met the Beast Emperor's fist with his palm. Boom! A destructive aura immediately spread out in all directions. Sanguis' human form was almost destroyed by the Beast Emperor's punch. So it's a soul form. The Beast Emperor nodded. Soul form? Qin Feiyang and the others looked at each other. In other words, this Sanguis was just a strand of his soul? What are you trying to do? Sanguis roared. His tone seemed to be very anxious. The Beast Emperor was silent. He took another step forward and threw a punch at Sanguis. Don't go too far. Sanguis roared. Humph. The Beast Emperor snorted. Divine energy surged in his palm, and a destructive aura shrouded the surroundings. You're still using divine energy? Sanguis was shocked. He suddenly turned into a bloody light and rushed toward the Beast Emperor's glabella. His speed was shockingly fast. He was like a completely different person from before. Even Qin Feiyang, the madman, and the white-eyed wolf couldn't keep up with Sanguis' speed. Are you trying to silence me? The Beast Emperor sneered. A flame rushed out from his glabella toward the bloody light. That flame was Qilin fire. Qilin fire was one of the most terrifying divine fires in the world. It had the terrifying ability to incinerate everything. Sanguis immediately howled, and his soul form dissipated by a third. Immediately after, Sanguis turned around and rushed to Li Feng. He then swept Li Feng up and started to flee without looking back. The Beast Emperor looked at Wang Ming and Yang Li and shouted, "Don't let him escape." Understood. The two of them nodded. Using their support-type divine arts, they chased after him from the left and right. The Beast Emperor also waved his hand and brought Qin Feiyang, the madman, and the white-eyed wolf with him. Little Lin, what the hell is this blood ancestor? Why are you so concerned about him? The white-eyed wolf was puzzled. The Beast Emperor pondered for a while and sighed. Not many people know the name Blood Ancestor now. Why? If even you care so much, he must be very famous. The white-eyed wolf said. That's right. He's very famous. At that time, there was no one who didn't know about it. The Beast Emperor nodded. The madman said, from what you're saying, he's someone from a long time ago? Yes. 100 million years ago. The Beast Emperor said. No way. Qin Feiyang, the madman, and the white-eyed wolf were dumbfounded. 100 million years ago, that was too long ago. At that time, the blood ancestor's status in the ancient world was comparable to mine now. The Beast Emperor said. Damn. This is too crazy. He's a living fossil. The madman was shocked. He's someone from the previous era. In short, his strength is far beyond your imagination. I don't know if it's good or bad for Li Feng to follow him. The Beast Emperor shook his head. The previous era? Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned, and then he turned to look at Madman and asked, "Do you remember that when we were in the Northern Territory and entered the extreme west and encountered the Grey Castle, he seemed to have said the words in the previous era?" "Did he?" The madman was stunned. "Yes. Don't you remember that he opened a barrier called the Realm of Death? This Realm of Death can summon a lot of puppets. At that time, we were wondering why he had so many powerful puppets. But he said, in the previous era, there were as many paragon gods as dogs. He also said that although the previous era ended 100 million years ago, the living beings of the previous era did not go extinct. At that time, we asked him what the previous era was. He said that with our cultivation, we were not qualified to know these secrets." Qin Feiyang said. The madman thought carefully and nodded. "I think so, but he seemed to be talking about the previous era. Isn't that the same thing?" Qin Feiyang was speechless. "So, the Blood Ancestor and the Grey Castle are people of the same era?" The madman said. "The Grey Castle?" The Beast Emperor was slightly taken aback. He looked at the two suspiciously and asked, "What is that?" "You don't know?" Qin Feiyang was surprised. "I don't know." The Beast Emperor shook his head. "That's not right. Didn't the Grey Castle enter the Divine Land with the Blood Ancestor's divine artifact and Mu Tianyang's divine artifact? The Blood Ancestor's divine artifact has returned to his side, so shouldn't the Grey Castle be in the Dragon-Slaying Palace now?" Qin Feiyang asked. "I didn't see the Grey Castle in the Dragon-Slaying Palace." The Beast Emperor shook his head. "What's going on? The Grey Castle isn't in the Dragon-Slaying Palace?" Qin Feiyang frowned. Suddenly, he patted his head. The Grey Castle was indeed not in the Dragon-Slaying Palace. Back in the Sky Dragon Sea, Qin Batian personally said that the Grey Castle and the Blood Ancestor weren't with him, but too much time had passed and his memory was a little blurry, so he couldn't remember for a while. Since they weren't together, they naturally couldn't be in the Dragon-Slaying Palace. It was normal that the Beast Emperor didn't know. However, where did the Grey Castle go? He hadn't seriously thought about this question. We'll talk about the Grey Castle later. Let's talk about the Blood Ancestor first. Since he's a peerless almighty from 100 million years ago, why is he still alive in this world? How do you know him? Could it be that you're also from the previous era? The lunatic looked at the Beast Emperor and asked. Me? I'm definitely not from the previous era. After all, that's 100 million years ago. The Beast Emperor shook his head. Since you're not, how do you know him? How can you tell his identity from his aura? The lunatic looked at him suspiciously. Because I saw him 1,000,000 years ago. The Beast Emperor said. 1,000,000 years ago? The lunatic was stunned. That's right. The Beast Emperor nodded. Hurry up and tell us in detail. The lunatic urged. There must be a story behind this. Otherwise, why would the Beast Emperor be so angry? Chapter 2709. The Beast Emperor clenched his fists tightly, his eyes shining with hatred. But gradually, the light faded, his hands loosened, and he shook his head. I don't want to talk about the past. Madman was stunned. White-Eyed Wolf and Qin Feiyang were also speechless. Their curiosity had already been piqued, but he didn't say anything. Wasn't he deliberately keeping them in suspense? But it could also be seen that Blood Ancestor must have done something to hurt the Beast Emperor. Young Master, it seems that we can't catch up. He has also activated some kind of supreme auxiliary divine art. Wang Ming's voice suddenly sounded in front. Qin Feiyang was stunned and looked up. As expected. Blood spirit speed was not inferior to Wang Ming and Li Feng's. We must stop him and ask him where his real body is hiding. The Beast Emperor said in a deep voice. This is a little difficult. Wang Ming and Li Feng looked at each other and shook their heads. Qin Feiyang said, no hurry, take it slow, I have a way. Okay. The two nodded. What do you have? The Beast Emperor looked at him suspiciously. Don't forget. We are now friends of the Blood Demon race. As Qin Feiyang spoke, he scanned the desert ahead. Friends of the Blood Demon race? The Beast Emperor was stunned. Did this have anything to do with chasing Blood Spirit? Time flew by. Half an hour passed. A group of people left the desert and entered the sky above a mountain. In the mountain. The mountains rose and fell, and the peaks overlapped. Even from afar, one could feel the ferocious aura from the mountains. This was the aura of fierce beasts. Most of them were of the ninth heaven realm. There was even the fierce power of the great perfection ninth heaven realm. Beast King of this place, I am Qin Feiyang. Please help me stop the two in front. Suddenly. Qin Feiyang roared, his voice like a bell, spreading in all directions. Huh! The Beast Emperor and the others looked at Qin Feiyang in astonishment. Blood Spirit and Li Feng were bewildered. Roar! As soon as he finished speaking. Accompanied by a loud beast roar, a giant tiger rushed out from a mountain in front of them. Its body size was dozens of meters. His hair looked as if it had been soaked in blood. His blood-red eyes seemed to be condensed from baleful aura. Looking at him from afar, one couldn't help but feel fear. And its cultivation was shockingly at the great perfection nine heaven stage. Qin Feiyang? The Crimson Tiger looked at Qin Feiyang's group and asked, which one of you is Qin Feiyang? Me. Qin Feiyang said. The blood-red tiger asked, what proof do you have? Although the living beings of hell knew that there was a human called Qin Feiyang, many of them didn't know what Qin Feiyang looked like. You need proof? Qin Feiyang felt rather helpless. He pointed at Sanguis and Li Feng and said, help me stop them. Without proof, how would I know if you're an imposter? The Crimson Tiger refused. Qin Feiyang's mood was very depressed. This was just like the unicorn back then. He had to prove himself. But what proof did he have? King Yu didn't give him any proof. I'm really Qin Feiyang. If you don't make a move, I'll tell Senior King Yu to deal with you. Qin Feiyang threatened. He could only use this method to let the Crimson Tiger make the first move. King Yu. Hearing this name, the Crimson Tiger's pupils immediately shrank and said, all right, I'll believe you for now. Immediately. It lowered its head to look at the mountains below and roared, guys, come out and stop them. Roar. At that moment. Accompanied by deafening roars, ferocious beasts rushed out from the mountains one after another. The beasts that rushed out were basically all at the Great Perfection Nine Heaven stage. There were more than 200 of them. It's them. The Crimson Tiger stared at Sanguis and Li Feng and shouted. Roar. Immediately. The 200 ferocious beasts spread out in all directions, sealing off the space in front and on both sides. Bastard! Sanguis was furious and shouted, he's lying to you. He's not Qin Feiyang. The Crimson Tiger was stunned. The 200 beasts also looked at each other. Was this really Qin Feiyang? Don't be anxious. I'll prove it to you later. You mustn't let them escape because they are the people that Senior King Yu wants to kill. Qin Feiyang said. The humans that King Yu wants to kill? The Crimson Tiger was shocked. If it was true, wouldn't it anger King Yu if it let the two of them go? The consequences of angering King Yu, just thinking about it made the Crimson Tiger's scalp go numb. It shouted to the beasts, brace yourself. The 200 beasts stared at Li Feng and Sanguis fiercely. What should we do? Li Feng was a little flustered. Sanguis said in a low voice, what else can we do? Of course, we have to kill our way out. Kill our way out? Didn't we say that we won't harm the beasts of hell? If we kill our way out, Qin Dage, Li Feng turned to look at Qin Feiyang, his eyes filled with respect. Qin Dage, you treat him as your big brother, but what does he treat you as? I think you still don't understand. In his eyes, you're not even comparable to these beasts. Sanguis shouted. Li Feng's eyes trembled. We'll talk about it later. They're the ones stopping us now. If we don't do anything, how are we going to escape? Sanguis sighed. He was also very puzzled. Who exactly was that person beside Qin Feiyang? He could actually recognize him. And judging from his appearance, he was not a kind person. All right. Try not to kill them. Li Feng nodded helplessly. You won't achieve anything if you're indecisive. Let me tell you, if you continue to be like this, don't blame me for not helping you. Sanguis snorted. This is my principle. Shuigang let us go back then, so we have to fulfill our promise to him. If you can't even fulfill the most basic promise, then do you still deserve to be called a human? Li Feng said. Foolish beyond compare. Hopeless. Sanguis was about to go crazy. Who instilled such a stupid idea into this kid's head? Li Feng said, if you don't agree, I'll stay here and wait for my death. Okay. Sanguis nodded. It was also very helpless to meet such a stubborn kid. Boom. Sanguis made his move. A blood-red light appeared and pounced on the beasts in front of him like a wave. Roar. When the beasts in front saw this, they became ferocious. Divine energy surged and turned into a huge wave that blasted toward the blood-red light. Boom. A destructive aura immediately spread out in all directions. The blood-red light destroyed everything in its path. The divine energy was instantly shattered. The beasts also let out a miserable cry and were sent flying. However, it was not fatal. So strong? Qin Feiyang was surprised. One had to know that those ferocious beasts were all at the peak of the Nine Heavens realm. No matter how powerful Sanguis was, it was impossible for him to destroy all of them. You still dare to hurt them? When the blood-red tiger saw this scene, its eyes flashed fiercely. Roar. With a roar, the blood-red tiger took a step forward and landed in front of Sanguis and Li Feng. Don't come here to court death. Sanguis snorted. You're the one courting death. The blood-red tiger roared. Blood-red divine energy rushed out of its body like waves. In the next moment, a huge blood-red moon rose into the sky, emitting an aura that could destroy the world. This is a supreme killing skill. Sanguis exclaimed. A mere ferocious beast had actually mastered a supreme being killing technique? Li Feng's face could not help but turn pale. In the Nether King's hell, be it the blood demon tribe or the beasts, they were indeed not something the divine land could compare to. Boom! The blood-red moon carried a monstrous aura and suppressed Sanguis and Li Feng. Get lost! Sanguis roared. A blood-red light surged and a huge skull appeared. This skull was condensed from the blood-red light and was as huge as a mountain. From afar, it looked like a devil from hell, causing one to panic. Boom! The blood-red moon, the skull, the two colossal objects collided with a loud bang. The surrounding void immediately shattered violently. The mountains below also collapsed. The beast emperor in the mountains fled in fear. Poof! The blood-red tiger suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood and its huge body retreated continuously. The blood-red moon also collapsed and shattered. Obviously, Sanguis was still stronger. I'm actually not his match. The blood-red tiger seemed very surprised by this outcome. However, although Sanguis was stronger, he was still forced to retreat a few steps. That's right, he's the blood ancestor. I remember that this deity art is a supreme being killing technique that he mastered. The Beast Emperor stared at the blood-red skull and roared. Sanguis suddenly turned to the Beast Emperor and said angrily, "Who the hell are you?" He had even seen his divine art before. The Beast Emperor did not reply and shouted, "Wang Ming, take this opportunity to trap him." Understood. Wang Ming nodded. With a wave of his hand, the heaven and earth cage came crashing down. You want to imprison me with this? Sanguis smiled disdainfully and the skull suddenly blasted toward the heaven and earth cage. With a loud bang, the heaven and earth cage was smashed into pieces. How is this possible? Wang Ming was dumbfounded. Qin Feiyang was also shocked. He had personally experienced Wang Ming's heaven and earth cage. Back then, even he had suffered greatly. But this Sanguis actually shattered it so easily? It was classified according to the grades. This skull had definitely reached the 9th grade. That was the peak of the supreme divine art. It seemed that he could not underestimate it. Go! With a wave of his hand, Sanguis swept Li Feng up and continued to flee. You want to leave after injuring me? The blood-red tiger attacked again with a ferocious aura. Boom! And at the same time, a powerful aura burst out from his body. Startled, Sanguis glanced at the source of the aura and realized that it was actually Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang's cultivation had actually soared directly from 9 heavens great perfection to 9 heavens great perfection. It seems to be the rising dragon spell, Li Feng murmured. The rising dragon spell was actually a small matter. What really made him panic was that Qin Feiyang had personally made a move. After all, even last time, Qin Feiyang had not really attacked him and Sanguis. He knew Qin Feiyang well. Once Qin Feiyang made a move, it meant that he was already angry. If it was anyone else, so be it. Who was afraid of who? But Qin Feiyang was different. Over the years, whenever Qin Feiyang was angry, the things he did were all earth-shattering. For example, ransacking all the city lord mansions in the north, brazenly destroying the treasure pavilion and forcing the chief pavilion master to bow his head. Another example was charging into the inland sea and snatching all the heaven-defying divine artifacts. Even destroying the Beast Emperor's physical body and soul. All these were enough to show that once Qin Feiyang was angry, he was a very frightening existence. Chapter 27:10. Boom! While Li Feng was panicking, Qin Feiyang used the heavenly dragon's 9 steps and walked toward them. Let me see how strong your technique is. There was no fear in his expression. His long hair fluttered in the wind and his body was as straight as an iron pine. He was like a god of war. Whether it was his temperament or aura, everyone present was ashamed of themselves. As you wish. Blood Spirit waved his hand and the supreme killing technique appeared again. The bloody skull carried a monstrous bloody light and charged toward Qin Feiyang. Hum. At the same time, Qin Feiyang took his 9th step. A huge heavenly dragon appeared in the sky, its dragon might shocking the surroundings as it pounced towards the skull. Boom! The two met in an instant. The heavenly dragon let out a wail and dissipated in the void. Poof! A trace of blood flowed from the corner of Qin Feiyang's mouth. Very powerful indeed. Qin Feiyang whispered. Humph! If it wasn't for Li Feng, would have killed you long ago. Blood Spirit snorted. Kill me? Qin Feiyang wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and sneered. You're quite arrogant. Let's see how long you can pretend to be calm. Blood Spirit snorted and the skull continued to charge toward Qin Feiyang. The sky and earth were dyed red by the bloody light. A terrifying aura shrouded the surroundings. If it was another great perfection ninth heaven realm cultivator, they might really die under the skull. But was Qin Feiyang the same? One had to know. The deity techniques he had mastered were all sovereign-level deity techniques. Moreover, and the super-powerful 3,000 incarnations. Once the 3,000 incarnations were activated, who under the eternal realm could compete with him? Therefore, even though Qin Feiyang was injured, the madman, white-eyed wolf, beast emperor, Wang Ming, and Yang Li were not worried at all. Qin Feiyang was invincible under the eternal realm. Clang! Qin Feiyang looked up at the skull and waved his hand. Flaming sword shadows appeared. Guiyuan sword technique. The number of Guiyuan sword techniques was determined by one's cultivation. A battle the arch could summon 50 sword shadows. War god, 60 sword shadows. Sir god, 70 sword shadows. Absolute god, 80 sword shadows. 9 heavens realm, 90 sword shadows. Now, Qin Feiyang was at the 9th heaven realm, so he could naturally summon 90 sword shadows. Every single sword image was comparable to an exalted grade divine art, and they emanated a sharp glow that seemed capable of destroying the world. Is there any use in numbers? Sanguis sneered. You'll find out later whether it's useful or not. Qin Feiyang said indifferently. Clang! As his voice fell, 90 sword shadows immediately slashed toward the skull. Crack! Rumble! The two continued to collide. Destructive waves of air rolled out in all directions. The space here seemed to have turned into chaos, and it was like the scene of the beginning of the world. The sword shadow was shattering. The skull was also cracking. As the last sword shadow shattered, the skull also shattered into pieces. Sanguis was surprised. I didn't expect young master to have mastered such a powerful exalted grade killing technique. Yang Li exclaimed. You're surprised? If I let you know that this Guiyuan sword technique was just a weak battle technique in the past, wouldn't your jaw drop? White-eyed wolf said. What? Guiyuan sword technique was just a battle technique in the past? Yang Li was stunned. Yes. White-eyed wolf smiled proudly and said, Little Qin Zi improved it step by step. How is it? He's powerful, right? Yes. Yang Li nodded. Under normal circumstances, as long as one broke through to the battle the arch level, they would abandon their previous battle techniques and directly look for exalted grade divine arts. Because after breaking through to the battle the arch level, the battle techniques were like little chicks, without any lethality. Just like him. In the past, he had also mastered many perfect battle techniques. But when he broke through to the battle the arch level, he gave up these perfect battle techniques and looked for exalted grade divine arts. And as far as he knew, there were almost no people who kept their battle techniques. First of all, as mentioned before, the battle techniques had no lethality. Secondly, it was impossible to upgrade a battle technique to exalted grade divine arts without heaven-defying comprehension. Even if one could do it, it would only be a low-tier exalted grade divine art. Therefore, it was better to directly look for a high-tier exalted grade divine art, a perfect grade divine art, or even a peak grade divine art. This way, it wouldn't be so troublesome. However, this Qin Feiyang had actually forcefully raised a battle art to the level of a supreme deity cultivation technique. How did he do it? This comprehension ability was also too terrifying, right? It's just so. Sanguis was also a little surprised at first, but he soon recovered from his shock. After letting out a hearty laugh, he continued to charge towards Qin Feiyang with the shattered skull. Although it was broken into pieces, its power was still extremely strong. It's just so, Qin Feiyang murmured and shook his head, to think that you're a peerless almighty 100 million years ago. What? He's a peerless almighty 100 million years ago? The blood-red giant tiger and a group of beasts looked at Sanguis in shock. They never thought that he would be such a terrifying figure. What do you mean by that? Sanguis was stunned and puzzled. What I mean is, after living for so many years, don't you understand a principle? There's always someone better than you. You can't underestimate anyone. As soon as Qin Feiyang finished speaking, his divine power surged out. 90 sword shadows appeared once again, their sharpness toppling mountains and overturning seas. There's always someone better than you. Of course, I understand this principle. But can you do it? Sanguis laughed and formed another blood-red skull. He said ferociously, I didn't want to kill you, but you're too insensible. Now, I'll send you to hell and let Li Feng see who's the real expert. Sanguis waved his hand and the skull immediately attacked Qin Feiyang. And from the skull, one could faintly hear the laughter of a malicious spirit. Qin Feiyang looked at him coldly and suddenly said 4 words. 9 become 1. Clang! At that moment, the 90 sword shadows immediately flew towards each other and quickly merged together. In just an instant, all the sword shadows disappeared and were replaced by a sword shadow that was 10,000 zhang long. At that moment, flames surged and waves of fire surged. The sword shadow that was 10,000 zhang long reached the ground and the sky. It was like a divine sword that could split the heavens and exuded a destructive power. That's right. This was a peerless killing technique that he created based on the Guiyuan sword technique. 9 become 1. In other words, all the sword shadows merged together to become one sword shadow. After the fusion, the power would naturally increase exponentially. The current power had almost exceeded the limit of a 9th-grade supreme deity technique. Clang! With a deafening sound, the sword shadow slashed at the skull. Rumble! The blood-colored skull only lasted for 2 breaths of time before it was crushed by the sword shadow with a crack. This, Sanguis was dumbfounded. Li Feng was also dumbfounded. The Crimson Tiger and the 200+ ferocious beasts were also dumbfounded. Wasn't this a little too strong? This is the strength that you thought you were infallible? It turns out to be so weak. Qin Feiyang looked at Sanguis indifferently. His tone was cold and full of contempt. Sanguis could not help but fly into a rage out of humiliation. Qin Feiyang looked at Li Feng and shook his head. Now do you understand what kind of person you are following? Li Feng was silent. Kid, be more careful. This 9 become 1 was just created by little Qin Zi. A newly created deity technique can crush Sanguis. Even an idiot would know that they are not on the same level. White-eyed Wolf shook his head. What? Newly created? Li Feng's body trembled. Sanguis was also in disbelief. To create such a terrifying killing technique? How terrifying was this person's talent and comprehension? Chapter 27:11. Qin Feiyang looked at Sanguis and said indifferently, you should have more tricks up your sleeves. Of course. Sanguis nodded, his tone carried a kind of arrogance that disdained everything in the world. It's just a spirit form, how strong can it be? I'm not in the mood to continue fooling around with you. When we leave China, I'll have a good fight with your original body if there's a chance. Remember, don't let me down. With that, Qin Feiyang directly activated the 3,000 clones, 3,000 clones. Beast Emperor and Wang Ming's eyes were burning with passion. This was Qin Feiyang's strongest trick. To be honest, even they wanted to take it for themselves. With these 3,000 clones, given their cultivation and strength, even if they fought the 10 ancestral dragons head-on, they could kill them in seconds. They really couldn't figure it out. Why did Qin Feiyang have so many terrifying godly arts? Wasn't Qin Feiyang from the lower realm? In their eyes, the Forgotten Continent and Great Qin Empire were lower realms. How could a mere lower realm possess such heaven-defying deity techniques? Actually, when Qin Feiyang obtained the 3,000 clones, he didn't realize how terrifying they were. He just felt that they were very powerful. At that time, he saw that Zhuge Mingyang was pretty good at using them, so he snatched them from Zhuge Mingyang. At first, he could summon one clone and dozens of clones. He always felt that the 3,000 clones should be a kind of ordinary auxiliary godly art. He had never really studied it. But as his cultivation increased, and as he understood the 3,000 clones, he gradually realized that the 3,000 clones could be comparable to a godly art. No. In some ways, the 3,000 clones were even more powerful than a godly art. In the past, the 6-word godly art was his trump card. But now, the 3,000 clones were his strongest trump card. In short, once the 3,000 clones were activated, they could definitely create an impossible miracle on the battlefield. 9-9-1. Once the 3,000 clones appeared, they also activated the Guiyuan sword technique. 3,000 sword shadows that were tens of thousands of meters long hovered in the sky. Their sharpness was peerlessly terrifying, and they shattered the void and the earth within 1,000,000 miles. Just the might of the 3,000 sword shadows was enough to create a doomsday-like scene. It was hard to imagine what would happen if he was struck by the 3,000 sword shadows. And at this moment, whether it was the Beast Emperor, Xue Ling, Li Feng, or the Crimson Giant Tiger, all of them couldn't help but tremble. This was fear. The 3,000 incarnations and the 3,000 sword shadows were like an army of the Grim Reaper. Li Feng, help me! Sanguis shouted in panic. If it was outside, he wouldn't be afraid. With his strength, even if he was only in his soul form, he could still kill Qin Feiyang in an instant. But it was different here. Even if you are at the Great Perfection Imperishable stage, you can only suppress it to the Great Perfection 9 Heaven stage. Facing Qin Feiyang, who was invincible under the undead realm, there was simply no need to struggle. All he needed to do was stand there and wait for death. Hearing Sanguis's cry for help, Li Feng suddenly quivered. He quickly stood in front of Sanguis and looked at Qin Feiyang, saying, "Qin Dage, you can't kill him." Before Qin Feiyang could speak, the Beast Emperor raised his eyebrows and looked at Li Feng gloomily, saying, "I'll kindly advise you to stay away from him. It's none of your business." Li Feng glared at the Beast Emperor, then looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "This is the last thing I'm begging you. Let us go, and we won't disturb you anymore." "Why are you so protective of him?" Qin Feiyang frowned. Li Feng pondered for a moment and said, "Because he's my master." "Master?" Qin Feiyang was stunned. This answer was somewhat unexpected. "You actually acknowledged him as your master? Kid, do you know his identity? His methods? Wake up. It's impossible for him to help you without any ulterior motives." The Beast Emperor shouted. "Do I know what he's after? But I don't care. As long as I can quickly become stronger, as long as I can destroy the dragons, I'm willing to do anything." Li Feng said. "Then what is he after?" Qin Feiyang asked. "I can't say, this is my agreement with him." Li Feng shook his head. Frenzy shouted impatiently, "How troublesome, just kill them all." Hearing this, Li Feng's body trembled slightly. If Qin Feiyang really wanted to kill him, he had no room to fight back. Plop. Suddenly, Li Feng knelt in the air, looking at Qin Feiyang and said, "Qin Dage, I beg you, please let us go." Qin Feiyang lowered his head to look at Li Feng, the disappointment in his eyes growing stronger. Perhaps, he shouldn't have helped this kid. If Li Feng had died with the people of Cloud Mountain Village back then, it might have been a good thing. Who? Qin Feiyang took a deep breath and turned to look at the Beast Emperor. The Beast Emperor pondered for a while and shook his head. He's just a wisp of divine soul now, it's meaningless to kill him. Forget it, let them go. Thank you. Li Feng thanked him profusely. The Beast Emperor looked at Li Feng, then at Sanguis, and said with a ferocious expression, "But remember this, when we return to Divine Land, I will definitely find you and tear you into pieces." Return to Divine Land, Sanguis murmured and laughed, "I'm afraid that will depend on whether you have the ability to do so. Just you wait and see." The Beast Emperor smiled coldly. "Let's go." With a wave of his hand, Sanguis took Li Feng and flew away without looking back. Sigh. What a pity. Looking at Li Feng's back, Qin Feiyang shook his head regretfully. Then, with a thought, the 3,000 clones disappeared into thin air. The 3,000 sword shadows also disappeared. The white-eyed wolf said, "Little Qin Zi, you actually care about him. Otherwise, with your personality, you wouldn't hesitate at all." Qin Feiyang remained silent. Although he didn't want to admit it, it was the truth. He couldn't bear to kill Li Feng. The entire Cloud Mountain village was left with only one son. If he killed him, the Cloud Mountain village's bloodline would be completely cut off. And all of this was because of the dragons. If the dragons didn't massacre the Cloud Mountain village, how would Li Feng become like this? In fact, in the end, Li Feng's goal was the same as his, to eliminate the dragons. However, Li Feng's method was more extreme. Let's wait and see. The current Li Feng hadn't completely demonized yet. Because at least he kept his promise and wouldn't hurt the beasts in hell. If the day came when he demonized, he would personally end Li Feng's life. "Who are you? How dare you impersonate Qin Feiyang?" Suddenly, there was an angry roar. The blood-red giant tiger was staring at Qin Feiyang with an unfriendly gaze. But it didn't dare to attack. Impersonate? Qin Feiyang was stunned. The real one was standing here, how did it become an impersonation? You said just now that they are the people that Lord King Yu wants to kill. But now, you're letting them go. Doesn't this prove that you're lying to me? Since you're lying to me, if you're not an impersonator, then what are you? The blood-red giant tiger said. Qin Feiyang was stunned. This explanation was quite reasonable. Wang Ming said, "You blind guy, didn't you hear Li Feng call him Qin Dage just now? Calling him Qin Dage, does that prove that he's Qin Feiyang? Ridiculous. You're very strong, but don't forget that this is hell. You'd better follow me to the ancient city obediently and wait for Lord King Yu's punishment." The blood-red giant tiger said. Hearing those words, Qin Feiyang and the others all had a helpless expression. The white-eyed wolf said, "Little Qin Zi, why don't you prove it?" "How? Before we left, Lord King Yu didn't give us anything like a token," Qin Feiyang said. The Beast Emperor and the others couldn't help frowning. Looking at the blood-red giant tiger's attitude, it wouldn't let them go easily if they didn't prove it. If they insisted on leaving, the blood-red giant tiger definitely wouldn't be able to stop them. But then, there would definitely be a lot of trouble. Therefore, they really had to clarify this matter. Besides, the blood-red giant tiger did this to protect Qin Feiyang's reputation. After all, if someone impersonated him, it would damage Qin Feiyang's image and reputation. Therefore, the blood-red giant tiger also had good intentions. If they heard it because of this, wouldn't it seem that they were cruel and unscrupulous? "I know a way to prove your identity." The blood-red giant tiger looked at Qin Feiyang and said. "What way?" Qin Feiyang said. "Although I haven't seen Qin Feiyang and don't know what Qin Feiyang looks like, I've heard rumors about him. He has activated a heaven-defying battle soul, the Eye of Heaven. If you're really Qin Feiyang, then activate the Eye of Heaven and show me. The blood-red giant tiger said. Eye of Heaven? Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned and said with a smile, you should have said so earlier. After saying that, he activated the dragon soul and the Eye of Heaven appeared. The blood-red giant tiger looked at the eye between the dragon soul's eyebrows and suddenly released divine power, and a blood moon appeared. The blood-red giant tiger said, copy it and see. Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed. What a cautious guy. Then, he followed the tiger's words and copied the blood moon. It's indeed the Eye of Heaven. The blood-red giant tiger's eyes trembled and hurriedly knelt on the ground, respectfully saying, Greetings, Lord. There's no problem now, right? Qin Feiyang asked. No, no. A battle soul like the Eye of Heaven is one of a kind. So there's definitely no problem with your identity. If I offended you earlier, please forgive me, my lord. The blood-red giant tiger panicked. It's fine. You're also protecting my reputation. I should thank you. Get up quickly. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Thank me? The blood-red giant tiger was stunned. It stood up and looked up and down at Qin Feiyang. What's wrong? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. As the rumors say, you're a very special human. The blood-red giant tiger said. Huh, Qin Feiyang laughed and said, all right, I still have to go to the forest of gods and demons. I won't stay any longer. Forest of gods and demons? The blood-red giant tiger was stunned and asked, does that mean you're already planning to leave hell? Not yet. I'm just going to the forest of gods and demons to try my luck and see if I can comprehend a type of law. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Then you have to be careful. The forest of gods and demons is very dangerous. I used to have a few companions. After entering the forest of gods and demons, they never returned. The blood-red giant tiger said with a hint of melancholy. Thank you. I'll be careful. If you have time, tell the other ferocious beasts what I look like and let them spread the news. Otherwise, I'll have to prove myself again. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. The blood-red giant tiger smiled embarrassedly and nodded. All right. We'll meet again if fate allows. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and gestured for Wang Ming to leave. With a wave of his hand, Wang Ming swept everyone up and disappeared at lightning speed. Did you hear that? Immediately spread Qin Feiyang's appearance for this emperor. Also, tell them to be more observant so that they don't accidentally injure Qin Feiyang. The blood-red giant tiger retracted its gaze and shouted at the beasts around it. Yes. The herd of beasts immediately dispersed and rushed in all directions. Chapter 27:12. Day by day, year by year, passed. Although there would be some troubles along the way, with the strength of Qin Feiyang and the rest, they could easily solve it. One day, a vast forest entered their sight. The forest was endless, the mountains were undulating, and the ancient trees towered into the sky. As for those ancient trees, they were unimaginably thick and solid. Every single one of them required several people to surround. In fact, some ancient trees required dozens of people to surround. The vines in the forest were like giant pythons, entangling everywhere, filled with a strong aura. However, there was no aura of beasts in the mountain, only dead silence. This kind of dead silence made one a little scared. Swish! Qin Feiyang and his group stopped outside, covered in dust. They curiously sized up the forest. This was the divine demon forest. On the surface, other than the atmosphere being a little strange, there didn't seem to be any danger. This divine demon forest can't be looked at with ordinary eyes. The Beast Emperor said in a deep voice. Among the group, he was undoubtedly the most qualified to speak. Because, this wasn't his first time here. Then what kind of danger is there in this forest? Frenzy was curious. Any kind of danger might exist. In short, if you want to go in, you must be fully prepared. The Beast Emperor said. Isn't that the same as not saying anything? Frenzy was speechless. To be honest, although I have been to hell so many times, I have never gone deep into the divine demon forest. The Beast Emperor shook his head. Then how do you know that any kind of danger might exist? Frenzy asked. Of course I know. Although I haven't gone deep into the divine demon forest, I have entered it before. That was when the hell of the underworld first opened. At that time, Long Zun, Yizhong, this emperor, Long Zun, various ancestral dragons, as well as countless dragons. It was our first time here and we didn't know the situation in the divine demon forest, so we barged in without any worries. But guess what happened in the end? In the end, it was Long Zun who activated the spacetime law and brought us out. Otherwise, the entire dragon clan would have been wiped out that time. The Beast Emperor said in a deep voice. What? Qin Feiyang was dumbfounded. This seemed a little too outrageous. What dangers did you encounter when you entered the mythical forest? Madman asked curiously. Behemoth, illusion. The Beast Emperor said. Behemoth? Illusion? Qin Feiyang and the others were stunned. Don't underestimate the illusions here. The illusions here are many times more powerful than the illusions we encountered in Fallen Valley. No matter how strong a person's temperament is, it will still be difficult for them to escape. The most important thing is, normal illusions only confuse the mind and won't cause any harm to the body. However, not only can the illusions here confuse your mind, they can also pose a fatal threat to your body. For example, if you are injured in the illusion, you will also be injured. If you die in the illusion, then you will really die. Back then, I almost died in an illusion. The Beast Emperor said. That's a little scary. Qin Feiyang and the others mumbled. Back then, after Long Zun led everyone out of the mythical forest, he made a conclusion. Everyone has encountered an illusion, but every illusion is different. We guessed that this should be a test of one's mind. The Beast Emperor said. I see. Qin Feiyang was enlightened and asked, what about the behemoths? The Beast Emperor scanned the forest in front of him and said, the behemoths are naturally the ferocious beasts in the mythical forest. There are ferocious beasts here? Qin Feiyang was stunned. It looked so calm. There shouldn't be any ferocious beasts here. Of course there are. Furthermore, the ferocious beasts here are extremely powerful. The most terrifying thing is that each of them has a supreme divine artifact and a divine art. The Beast Emperor said. So powerful? Then why don't we sense the aura of the ferocious beasts? Wang Ming was suspicious. Because the mythical forest is a domain. Although it looks like there is nothing around the mythical forest, there is actually an invisible domain. This domain covers the entire mythical forest and can seal off all auras. Only when you step into the mythical forest will you truly realize how terrifying it is. The Beast Emperor said. Domain? Qin Feiyang and the others looked at each other and scanned the sky above the mythical forest. Indeed, they didn't see anything. I'll go take a look. Yang Li said and flew forward. Don't go. The Beast Emperor immediately shouted. Hm? Yang Li was instantly shocked and stopped in his tracks to look at the Beast Emperor suspiciously. Don't be rash. The Beast Emperor glared at Yang Li and said in a deep voice, once you enter the mythical forest, there is no way out. What? Yang Li's gaze trembled as he looked at the mythical forest in shock. One could only enter and not exit. It is easy to enter this domain, but one has to go through many dangers to exit from the other side. Which is the mythical square? In other words, the exit of the mythical forest is the mythical square. The Beast Emperor said. Wang Ming looked at Qin Feiyang and asked, Young master, are we going in now or? Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment and scanned the surroundings with a frown. Why can't I see anyone? That's right. Didn't we release the news long ago? Logically speaking, there should be people rushing to the mythical forest. Lunatic slapped his head and looked around suspiciously. How can they be faster than us? Wang Ming shook his head. That's right. We activated the supreme-level auxiliary divine art the entire time. As for the others, they're either weak or don't have supreme-level auxiliary divine arts. Even if they do, they wouldn't dare to activate it. That's because activating the supreme-level auxiliary divine art consumes too much divine power. Besides, just because there isn't one here doesn't mean there isn't one elsewhere. After all, the mythical forest is so huge. They could be in another direction. Yang Li said. That's true. Qin Feiyang nodded and looked at the Beast Emperor trio with a smile. It must be tough for you guys to travel for the past 10-odd years. You should rest first. Okay. The three of them nodded. They looked around and found a secluded valley not far away on the left. Inside the valley, there was a pack of blood wolves at the Nine Heavens realm. However, when Qin Feiyang and the others landed in the valley, the pack of blood wolves immediately ran away. We'll rest here for the time being, Qin Feiyang said. Everyone nodded. Wang Ming and Yang Li sat cross-legged on the ground and threw divine power pills into their mouths. Then, they took out a bunch of divine crystals to refine and absorb. That way, they would recover faster. As for Qin Feiyang, Lunatic and White-Eyed Wolf, they didn't do anything along the way, so they naturally didn't need to rest. Old man. Lunatic suddenly looked at the Beast Emperor and said, Didn't you say that the beasts in the mythical forest all have supreme-level divine weapons and divine arts? Yes. The Beast Emperor nodded. Since there are supreme-level divine weapons and divine arts, does that mean there are heaven-defying divine weapons and divine arts as well? Lunatic asked. Logically speaking, there should be. But I don't know if there are any. The Beast Emperor thought for a moment. Lunatic chuckled. This mythical forest is really something to look forward to. Look forward to? The Beast Emperor's mouth twitched. I won't see you if you want to go in, but you can't force me to go in. Look at how timid you are. Lunatic looked down on him. Say what you want. In any case, I didn't plan to go in from the beginning. After you enter the mythical forest, I'll go directly to the mythical square to wait for you. The Beast Emperor said indifferently. Lunatic raised his middle finger. Qin Feiyang glanced at the Beast Emperor. It seemed that the mythical forest wasn't a good place. Otherwise, the Beast Emperor wouldn't be so afraid. Qin Feiyang asked, Where's the safe path? Over there. The Beast Emperor pointed to the mountains on the right and said, It's not far from us. We'll be there in an hour. Safe path, Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment and frowned. Do you think the ancestral dragons might be waiting for us at the safe path? The Beast Emperor paused for a moment and nodded. Well, it might be possible. The 7 ancestral dragons definitely wouldn't let it go. The best way to kill Qin Feiyang was to ambush them at the entrance of the safe path. This way, they would be able to kill them before they could react. Qin Feiyang said, Go and rest. Take us to the safe path later. Okay. The Beast Emperor nodded and sat cross-legged on the ground, closing his eyes to rest. Qin Feiyang left the valley and stood at the peak of a giant mountain, looking at the mythical forest. What are you looking at? Lunatic and White-Eyed Wolf flew to the peak and looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. I'm wondering if the mythical forest is suppressing something like the Fallen Valley? Qin Feiyang said. Suppressing something? Lunatic and White-Eyed Wolf were taken aback. Otherwise, why would there be an invisible domain here? And we can only enter and not leave? Qin Feiyang said. Hearing this, the two of them became excited. If it was suppressing something, it must be a heaven-defying divine item like the Blood Demon Tower. White-Eyed Wolf, before you entered the Nether King's Hell, didn't you say that you had to come? What is your reason? Qin Feiyang suddenly looked at White-Eyed Wolf and frowned. Yes. I'm here for the Blood Demon Tower. What about you? Lunatic also looked at White-Eyed Wolf in confusion. It seemed that all these years, the ingrate had only been cultivating and cultivating. He had not done anything else. He. If I didn't say that, would you let me in? White-Eyed Wolf looked at Qin Feiyang and smiled slyly. You bastard. Qin Feiyang immediately sent a kick over. Why are you angry? Doesn't this prove that I was right to come here? If I didn't come to the Nether King's Hell, would I have gone to the Nether King's ancient city? If I didn't go to the Nether King's ancient city, would I have broken through to the greater success stage so quickly? White-Eyed Wolf dodged to the side and picked his nose proudly. Qin Feiyang and Lunatic looked at each other speechlessly. Chapter 27:13. Speaking of which, I wonder how old Zhao and the others are doing now. What changes have there been to the time rules of the Black Tortoise realm? The White-Eyed Wolf said. Even though the castle was right beside Qin Feiyang, he couldn't even talk to them. They must be working harder to cultivate. So, we must not relax. Qin Feiyang said. The White-Eyed Wolf nodded. Qin Feiyang looked around again, then looked up at the sky and laughed. It seems that this Nether King's Hell is not the third floor. What do you mean? The White-Eyed Wolf was taken aback. When I entered the passage, I heard the fire dragon's voice, so I thought this was the third floor. Qin Feiyang said. The fire dragon's voice? The White-Eyed Wolf was stunned, then looked at Qin Feiyang and said, Now that you mention it, I remember that I heard the fire dragon's voice in the passage. It can't be. Qin Feiyang was surprised. That is to say, the appearance of the fire dragon was not an illusion? Could it be, was this really the third floor? The madman looked at the two of them suspiciously and said, The fire dragon you guys are talking about, does it look like this? Finished. The madman waved his hand, and a huge fire dragon appeared. How do you know? Qin Feiyang and the White-Eyed Wolf looked at the fire dragon and said in surprise. That's right. This was the fire dragon from the Divine Ruins. I also saw it in the passage. At that time, it ran out and ambushed me. At first, I thought it was some fierce beast, but when I absorbed the evil energy around me, I realized that it was a divine dragon. At that time, I thought that it was a dragon. The madman said. That bastard, why would he appear in the Hell King's passageway? I remember the fire python said before that it seemed to have gone to the third floor. Could this place really be the third level of the divine site? The White-Eyed Wolf also scanned his surroundings in bewilderment. I don't know. Qin Feiyang shook his head. His mind was in a mess. Right. Here, take this soul-anchoring divine pearl. Madman took out the soul-anchoring divine pearl, erased the blood contract and threw it to Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang was stunned. He grabbed the soul-anchoring divine pearl and asked, You don't want to keep it? I have already left the ancient city of Qingyu. That old man doesn't even have the chance to possess me. What's the point of staying here? Madman waved his hand. Qin Feiyang dripped a drop of blood on the soul-settling divine pearl to recognize it as its master. He put away the soul-settling divine pearl and asked, Have you ever wondered why he was so determined to possess you? Do you even need to ask? It must be because of my extraordinary talent. Madman laughed narcissistically. Shameless. The White-Eyed Wolf looked down on him. I am being serious. I feel that the reason why he wanted to possess you might be because you can absorb the special evil force of Fallen Valley. After all, there were so many people there. Why did he choose you? Qin Feiyang said. I think so too. Madman nodded. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while and said, let me take a look at your souls again. I already said that there is no mark. What is there to see? Madman was speechless. It is better to be safe than sorry. There wasn't one before. What if there is suddenly one? If there is a mark, you won't be able to leave the Nether King's hell. That is why we have to confirm it. Qin Feiyang said. Madman was helpless. He sat on the ground and took off his shoes. He stretched out his feet and said, take a look. Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf looked. There was indeed no mark on his soles. How can he absorb the evil force? What a freak! Qin Feiyang muttered. Madman said as he put on his shoes, you should say that to the white-eyed wolf. Hearing this, Qin Feiyang turned to look at the white-eyed wolf. The white-eyed wolf immediately said proudly, there is no energy in the world that I can't absorb. Scram! Qin Feiyang glared at it fiercely. Time flew by. The next morning, Beast Emperor and the other two woke up. After a day and night of quiet cultivation, their essence, qi, and spirit had already recovered to their peak state. Immediately after, under Beast Emperor's lead, the group flew toward a safe path. An hour later, suddenly, one aura after another entered their senses. There is someone? Wang Ming was stunned. When they crossed a mountain, they immediately saw a plain in front of them. The plain was overgrown with weeds. In a certain area of the plains, there were about 100 people. They were gathered together, some were talking in low voices, while others were meditating with their eyes closed. Beast Emperor led Qin Feiyang and the others to a mountain ridge outside the plain and looked suspiciously at the people on the plain. They're all gathered here? Wang Ming was surprised. This is the entrance to the safe path. Look over there, Beast Emperor pointed at the forest of gods and demons as he spoke. Qin Feiyang and the others looked over and saw a 1-meter-wide bluestone path at the edge of the forest of gods and demons. The path wound straight into the depths of the forest of gods and demons. Why is there a path specially for people to walk on? The white-eyed wolf was astonished. This path already existed the first time the Hell of the Nether King opened. That's why we don't know who paved this path. Beast Emperor shook his head. It has to be the Dragon God. After all, the Hell of the Nether King is his world. Madman said. It can't be the Dragon God. How could the high and mighty Dragon God do something so boring? I think it might be the Blood Demon Clan. Beast Emperor said. Blood Demon Clan? Madman was blank. Needless to say, this possibility was quite high. That's right. There are 2 more things I didn't tell you yesterday. You can't fly in the forest of gods and demons, so you can only walk through it. Also, there's a mysterious power in the forest of gods and demons. No matter what is destroyed, it will automatically return to its original state after an hour. Beast Emperor said. What? Automatically return to its original state? Qin Feiyang and the others looked at each other in dismay. That's right. It means that even if you destroy the entire forest of gods and demons, everything will return to its original state after an hour. Beast Emperor said. That's amazing. Hearing this, Qin Feiyang and the others looked at the forest of gods and demons in amazement. Beast Emperor then looked at the 100 or so people on the plain and said, but why are they gathered here? Is there a problem with that? Yang Li didn't understand. Of course there's a problem. Before entering hell, the dragons didn't disclose this safe route to the public. Neither did they disclose the situation in the forest of gods and demons to the public. Logically speaking, they should have entered the forest of gods and demons the moment they came here. But why are they still here now? It's as if they know that the forest of gods and demons is very dangerous. Beast Emperor said. Hearing Beast Emperor's words, there did seem to be a problem. Look! Suddenly, Wang Ming pointed to a spot not far from the crowd. There was a huge rock over there and a white-haired old man was sitting cross-legged under it. Yi Zhong? Yang Li was stunned. That's right. That white-haired old man was Yi Zhong. So he's the good guy. Beast Emperor mumbled. No, no. Qin Feiyang shook his head. What's wrong? Beast Emperor looked at him suspiciously. If these people know that the path is the safe route, why are they still here? Qin Feiyang said. That's right. Hell is so dangerous. If I were them and knew that there was a safe route to the square of gods and demons, would definitely head there immediately. But these people are all gathered here. Therefore, we can basically conclude that they definitely don't know that the path is the safe route to the square of gods and demons. Lunatic said. Beast Emperor thought for a moment and felt that it made sense. He asked suspiciously, then why is Yi Zhong hiding it from them? I'm not sure. Qin Feiyang and Lunatic shook their heads. Also, I didn't see the ancestral dragons. Did they head directly to the square of gods and demons? Wang Ming was puzzled. That shouldn't be the case. When the ancestral dragons left, they were all murderous. It really doesn't make sense if they didn't ambush us here. It doesn't suit their personalities either. Yang Li mumbled. Qin Feiyang looked at Yi Zhong and then at the 100 people. Let's observe the situation first. The group stood on the mountain ridge and did not make a move. In the blink of an eye. The day was over and evening fell. The evil moon rose and the world turned even darker red. Swoosh! At this moment, there was the sound of something tearing through the air. When Qin Feiyang and the others heard it, they immediately looked in the direction of the sound and saw more than 10 figures streaking through the air at lightning speed. The person in the lead was a young man in blood-red clothes. Although he looked like a young man, his aura was extremely strong. The dozen people behind him were also respectful to the young man. It's him. Blood Dragon, Ancestral Dragon. Wang Ming's pupils constricted. That's right. The young man in blood-red clothes was Blood Dragon, Ancestral Dragon. And the people behind the young man in blood-red clothes were all pure humans. Soon, the young man in blood-red clothes led those people and descended above the plain. The young man in blood-red clothes pointed at the plain and said, "You guys can rest here first." Yes. The dozen or so people responded respectfully and landed on the plains. The young man in blood-red clothes flew towards Yi Zhong. Let's go over and take a look. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed as he sent a voice transmission. How do we go over? Beast Emperor frowned. That's easy. Qin Feiyang smiled and activated the concealment spell. He led everyone directly into the sky above the plain and landed not far away from Yi Zhong and the young man in blood-red clothes. The young man in blood-red clothes asked, "Old man Yi, did anything unusual happen today?" No. Yi Zhong opened his eyes and glanced at the young man in blood-red clothes. He responded indifferently and closed his eyes again. Seeing Yi Zhong's attitude, the young man in blood-red clothes couldn't help but raise his eyebrows, but didn't say anything. He sat cross-legged on the side and refined the evil power in his body. Soon. Whoosh. There were a few more sounds of something tearing through the air. The woman in white and the other 6 ancestral dragons arrived at the plain one after another. And they brought back dozens of people with them. In addition to the original 100 people, there were about 300 people on the plain now. However, their cultivation levels were mixed. There were peerless gods, 9 heavens realm, and even godly lords. After giving some instructions to those people, the woman in white and the other ancestral dragons landed beside Yi Zhong and the young man in blood-red clothes. "You're all back." The young man in blood-red clothes opened his eyes and looked at the 6 people. "Yes." The 6 people nodded. Chapter 27:14. The blood-red clothed youth looked at the 300 people and frowned. "This is far from enough." "Yes. But it doesn't matter. We still have plenty of time. More and more people will come here in the future," the white-clothed woman said. The blood-red clothed youth nodded. He stood up and said, "I heard another piece of news today. Is it about the inheritance of heaven-defying artifacts and the power of laws?" The white-clothed woman asked. "How did you know?" The blood-red clothed youth was stunned. The white-clothed woman said in a deep voice, "We also heard about it." "How did you know?" The blood-red clothed youth looked at the 6 people in shock. "He said it." The white-clothed woman pointed at the people she had just brought back. She then looked at the blood-red clothed youth and asked, "What about you?" The blood-red clothed youth said, "I also heard it from the people I brought back today." "That's strange. Why did they all say that the divine demon forest has the inheritance of heaven-defying artifacts and the power of laws?" The white-clothed woman frowned. "There must be something wrong. When we go out tomorrow, we must find out about this," the blood-red clothed youth said in a deep voice. The white-clothed woman nodded and asked with a smile, "How's the refining of the evil force?" "Don't mention it. The evil force in the Fallen Valley is too difficult to refine." The blood-red clothed youth sighed. When they left, there was no frenzied man's barrier. Naturally, a large amount of evil force invaded their bodies. They had been refining it all these years. But the effect was minimal. Fortunately, their cultivation was strong. Otherwise, they would have been eroded by the evil force. "It's all because of those 2 bastards Li Bu, heir and frenzied man," the golden dragon ancestral dragon said with resentment in his eyes. When Qin Feiyang and frenzied man were mentioned, their eyes flashed coldly. "Yi Zhong, it's been so long. Shouldn't you be honest with us? What happened after we left the Fallen Valley? Is that disciple of yours dead or alive? If he's dead, wouldn't all our efforts be in vain?" The white-clothed woman looked at Yi Zhong and frowned. Yi Zhong really didn't tell them? Surprised, the Beast Emperor turned to look at Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang had expected this. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and looked at Yi Zhong and the 7 ancestral dragons in silence. "Even if I can't kill Li Bu, I can kill Qin Feiyang. After all, as long as he's not dead, he'll come to the divine devil forest sooner or later. As long as I can kill him, my efforts won't be in vain." Yi Zhong slowly opened his eyes and looked at the 7 ancestor dragons. When Qin Feiyang heard Yi Zhong's words, he revealed a look of understanding. He glanced at the 300 people and thought, "So they gathered these people to deal with me. Just like that?" Madman's face was full of disdain. "Of course, this amount of people is nothing. But don't forget, there are millions of humans who have entered the hell of Hades. Even if the survival rate is only 10%, there are still hundreds of thousands of people. If they gather all these people, it will be troublesome." The Beast Emperor transmitted his voice. "What are you afraid of? We'll catch them all in one fell swoop," Madman said proudly. The Beast Emperor glanced at Madman and didn't say anything else. He continued to look at Yi Zhong and the 7 ancestral dragons. "Humph." After hearing Yi Zhong's words, the blood-red youth snorted and said, "In our eyes, Li Bu deserves to be killed more than Qin Feiyang. Then go and kill him." "Why are you talking to me?" Yi Zhong frowned. "What's with your attitude? We're just asking you. We didn't do anything to you." The blood-red youth said angrily. I'm not in the mood to talk nonsense with you. Don't bother me. After saying that, Yi Zhong closed his eyes again. Bastard. I've tolerated you for a long time. If you don't make it clear today, don't blame me for falling out with you. The blood-red youth was enraged. Let's talk nicely. Let's talk nicely. The white-robed woman comforted the blood-red youth and walked to Yi Zhong's side and asked, Old man Yi, since you came here, you haven't said a word about Li Bu. Did he betray you? Hearing this, Yi Zhong couldn't help but clench his fists. Betrayal? If it was just betrayal, why would he be so heartbroken? Li Bu, this Li Bu, was Qin Feiyang. However, he didn't dare to say the truth. He was afraid that Yi Cheng would be implicated and even more afraid that Yi Shui, and the old man would be implicated. Because the ancestral dragons were prejudiced against him. If they knew about this, they would definitely use it as an excuse to make a fuss. Looking at Yi Zhong's expression, the white-robed woman sighed, it seems that I guessed correctly. I knew that Li Bu, and Madman weren't good people. To think that you and Old Black took care of them. The blood-red youth said in disgust. Master, how long are you going to keep silent? Suddenly, a familiar voice sounded in Yi Zhong's mind. Yi Zhong's gaze trembled, he immediately opened his eyes and scanned his surroundings. What's wrong with you? The 7 ancestral dragons looked at Yi Zhong in surprise. Yi Zhong remained silent. Master. I still want to enter the Divine Dragon Island. I'll have to rely on you. That voice sounded in Yi Zhong's mind again. Yi Zhong clenched his fists tightly. After a long time, he sighed and looked at the 7 ancestral dragons. It's not what you think. The 7 ancestral dragons were stunned. Yi Zhong shook his head and said, Li Bu, didn't betray me. No? Then why are you? The 7 of them looked at him in confusion. It's because of Qin Feiyang. When we finished the treasure hunt, we were preparing to come to the Divine Devil Square together. But who would have thought that Qin Feiyang and the Blood Demon race were already lying in ambush outside Fallen Valley? We were caught off guard. Li Bu, Frenzy, and the Beast Emperor were separated from me. Now, I don't know if they're dead or alive. Yi Zhong said. So that's how it is. The 7 of them suddenly understood. The blood-red youth said, Then what do you think about our plan to deal with your disciple? You're all ancestral dragons, high and mighty. Can I influence your decision? Yi Zhong snorted coldly. At least you have some self-awareness. But don't worry, as long as he's willing to obediently hand over the divine item he got from Fallen Valley, we'll give you face and let him live. The blood-red youth said. Then I'll have to thank you. Yi Zhong looked at them and said coldly, then closed his eyes and went silent. But in his heart, he was mocking them. What a bunch of idiots. They thought that victory was in their hands, but they didn't know that Qin Feiyang was already eyeing them in the dark. The blood-red youth glanced at Yi Zhong, then at the blood-red woman and the others. Then hurry up and refine the evil force, we still have to go out and continue to look for people tomorrow. The 6 of them nodded. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed slightly, then he turned and left with Frenzy and the others. Not far away. On a mountain peak. The Beast Emperor turned to look at Qin Feiyang and asked suspiciously, Why aren't you making a move? No hurry. Let's let them have some hope first. Plus, they've gathered everyone here, so we don't have to look for them ourselves. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. The Beast Emperor looked deeply at Qin Feiyang and didn't say anything else. Qin Feiyang always had a plan when he did things. Since he did this, he definitely had his own plans. As the Beast Emperor, he had countless subordinates, so he naturally knew what a subordinate should do and shouldn't do. They just needed to follow orders and didn't need to ask about anything else. Early the next morning. the 7 ancestral dragons left the plains again. Seeing the 7 ancestral dragons leave, the 300 people on the plains hesitated for a moment before walking toward Yizhong. "What's wrong?" Yizhong opened his eyes and asked suspiciously when he sensed their auras. "Grand Hall Master. Is it true that this divine demon forest has a heaven-defying divine artifact and the inheritance of the power of law?" one of them asked. Yizhong was stunned and frowned. "Where did you hear this from?" "The beasts of hell said it. We came to the divine demon forest because we heard this, but we didn't expect to meet you and the other ancestral dragons," someone said. "The beasts of hell?" Yizhong was stunned. It was strange, why would the beasts of hell tell humans this? Could it be, suddenly? Yizhong seemed to have thought of something as his eyes flashed. Looking at the 300 people, he said, "There might be a heaven-defying divine artifact in the divine demon forest, but it is also very dangerous." "What danger?" Everyone was surprised. "Let me put it this way. Even this old man can't walk out alive," Yizhong said. "What?" The group of people turned pale with fright. "So listen to this old man, don't go to the divine demon forest. You guys stay here first, this old man has something to do." After Yizhong finished speaking, he rose into the sky and looked around before heading in a random direction. "There really is a heaven-defying divine artifact, even if it's dangerous, it's worth a try. If you want to go, then go ahead. I won't go in anyway." "That's because Chief Palace Master Yizhong said that there might be." "There might be, what does that mean?" "There might be, there might not be. Besides, even Grand Hall Master Yizhong can't walk out alive, let alone us. Let's just give up." As soon as Yizhong left, the 300 people started talking. A moment later. "So you were still hiding nearby?" Yizhong appeared in the air above a mountain peak and lowered his head to look at Qin Feiyang and the others on the mountain peak. Qin Feiyang opened his eyes and looked up at Yizhong with a smile. "This disciple also guessed that you would definitely come looking for us." Yizhong landed on the mountain peak and looked at Beast Emperor, Madman, Wang Ming and Yang Li. "All of you have changed your appearances. It seems that you are also afraid of being exposed." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. "Of course it's best if we don't expose ourselves." Yizhong snorted and asked, "Then which one of them is Venerable Beast?" "I am." Beast Emperor replied. Yizhong sized Beast Emperor up and shook his head. "As expected, you still can't escape from his grasp. The Grand Venerable Beast of the Dragon Slayer Palace has actually been reduced to a young man subordinate." "How sad." Beast Emperor smiled bitterly. Was he mocking him? But even if he was, he couldn't refute it. Because it was the truth. He had already been reduced to Qin Feiyang's subordinate. Chapter 27:15. Wang Ming looked at Yizhong and frowned. "Did you come to us just to humiliate Venerable Beast?" As Qin Feiyang had said, they were all family now and had to unite against outsiders. They were bound together for good or ill. Humiliating Beast Emperor was the same as humiliating them. Yizhong glanced at Wang Ming, then at Qin Feiyang. "Did you ask the blood demons to spread the news that there is a heaven-defying divine artifact and the power of inheritance in the forest of gods and demons? Master is indeed amazing. You guessed it right away." Qin Feiyang smiled. "There's nothing amazing about that. To be able to do this in such a short period of time, only the blood demon race in the infernal King Hell has this ability. But I know the blood demons well. They wouldn't do something so senseless. So, there must be someone behind this. Apart from you, who else can get the blood demon race to help?" Yizhong said. "Your analysis is so clear and logical, as if you saw it with your own eyes. I'm really impressed." Qin Feiyang smiled. Don't call me master or disciple. You, Qin Feiyang, are such an amazing person. How dare I be your master? Just tell me, what's your purpose? Yi Zhong snorted coldly. I don't have a purpose. I just want to see if I can find those imperishable stage experts in seclusion. Qin Feiyang didn't hide anything. Why are you looking for them? Yi Zhong frowned. To unite everyone and fight the dragons together, of course. Qin Feiyang smiled. You're harming them, do you understand? Yi Zhong shouted. Harming them? Qin Feiyang was stunned. You already know how powerful the dragons are. And these supreme experts in seclusion don't want to be enemies with the dragons. But now, you're thinking of ways to make them your cannon fodder. If this isn't harming them, then what is? Yi Zhong said angrily. Cannon fodder? Do you think I'm a dragon? In the eyes of Qin Feiyang, there is no such thing as cannon fodder. There is only mutual respect and mutual support. We'll talk about it later. Do you think they can stay out of this by hiding? The wrath of the dragons will spread to the entire ancient realm sooner or later. At that time, no one will be spared. Qin Feiyang said. Yi Zhong frowned and said, Aren't you being a bit alarmist? An alarmist? Master, you've been with the dragons for so long. Don't you know what they're like? Do you think they'll watch me and the dragon-slaying palace grow? Even if the ancestor said so. Ancestor has comprehended the laws of space and time. Sooner or later, he will catch up to revered dragon. To Long Zun, this is a great danger. But the ancestor also has a weakness. And this weakness is very fatal. I'm sure you're also aware of the ancestor's weakness. The ancestor is too benevolent and cares too much about those innocent people. Do you think the dragons will let go of this weakness when they're at their wits' end? Qin Feiyang said. Yi Zhong fell silent. When that time came, who knew what dehumanizing things Long Zun might do? Because, he indeed knew Long Zun's character. Long Zun had long been dissatisfied with humans. If it wasn't for the dragon god, humans would probably have been wiped out by the dragons long ago. So, instead of dying innocents, it's better to unite everyone as soon as possible. That way, even if the dragons ruthlessly kill us, we might not have a chance to fight back. Qin Feiyang said indifferently. Beast Emperor and Wang Ming looked at each other. What foresight! This young man was indeed different from the rest. No wonder he had been able to survive until now, despite being hunted down by the dragons. Yi Zhong took a deep breath, looked at Qin Feiyang, and asked, What about you? Do you care about the creatures in the ancient world? I don't know. I only know that if I have no other choice, I'll kill them all without mercy. Qin Feiyang said. Then what's the difference between you and the dragons? Yi Zhong sneered. Difference? Qin Feiyang murmured, then looked at Yi Zhong with a faint smile. You'll find out one day. Hearing this, Yi Zhong couldn't help feeling puzzled. What did he mean? But next to him, the white-eyed wolf couldn't help frowning when he heard Qin Feiyang's words. This bastard, he was definitely thinking about something he shouldn't be thinking about again. Yi Zhong didn't know, but the white-eyed wolf knew that when the time came, given Qin Feiyang's personality, he would definitely sacrifice himself to revive everyone. Yi Zhong, to be honest, it's really not worth it to risk your life for the dragons. You have the strength and the brains. And after being together for so long, I know that you care a lot about humans. Since that's the case, why don't you do something meaningful for humans? Beast Emperor advised. It wasn't that he wanted to drag Yi Zhong down with him because he had been subdued by Qin Feiyang. He wasn't that despicable. It was because he had long wanted to persuade Yi Zhong. Yi Zhong's cultivation wasn't any weaker than his, and he had also comprehended the power of laws. If Yi Zhong could leave the dragon clan, whether it was to join the dragon-slaying palace or to submit to Qin Feiyang, it would be of great help to the destruction of the dragon clan. It could be said that, no one could compare to Yi Zhong's value. Whether it's worth it or not, I know in my heart. You don't have to worry about it. I only have one request. As Yi Zhong spoke, he turned to look at Qin Feiyang. Go ahead. Qin Feiyang smiled. I can keep all this a secret, but the condition is that you have to let Yi Cheng go. Yi Zhong said. Let Yi Cheng go? Qin Feiyang was stunned. He didn't expect that Yi Zhong would make such a condition. After all, Yi Cheng was willing. Even when he used the slave seal to control him, he was the one who suggested it. Therefore, it was impossible for him to let Yi Cheng go. This is my only condition. Otherwise, we'll fight to the death. There was a cold light in Yi Zhong's eyes. Okay. When we get back to Divine Land, I'll personally take Yi Cheng to you. Qin Feiyang nodded. I hope you can do as you say. With that, Yi Zhong turned to leave. But suddenly, he stopped and lowered his head in thought for a while, then said without looking back, Lunatic, be careful. Black Dragon Ancestral Dragon definitely won't let you off. After saying that, he didn't stay any longer and quickly disappeared into the mountains below. Won't let me off? Lunatic was slightly taken aback, then laughed cruelly. I won't let him off. That is indeed a problem. You beat up Black Dragon Ancestral Dragon in Fallen Valley back then. Even if Yi Zhong keeps his mouth shut about us, it'll be hard for him to get past the Ancestral Dragons. Beast Emperor was worried. Yes. Unless you hand over the heaven-defying divine weapon you obtained from Fallen Valley. Wang Ming nodded. Yang Li looked at Wang Ming and shook his head. Even if you hand over the heaven-defying divine weapon, the Ancestral Dragons probably won't let Young Master and Lunatic off so easily. After all, what happened back then was a lifetime of humiliation for them. Then what should we do? Hearing this, Wang Ming frowned and felt that it made sense. How would I know? Yang Li was speechless. In his opinion, this was a dead end that could not be broken. It's actually not difficult. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Not difficult? Beast Emperor and the other two looked at Qin Feiyang in shock. Don't forget. We weren't the only ones who beat them up back then. The young man was there too. As long as the young man is willing to step in, I don't think the Ancestral Dragons can do anything. Qin Feiyang said. That's right. We can look for that young man. The three of them slapped their heads. The young man's strength was unfathomable. Back then, when Long Zun personally descended on the Dragon God Hall, he did not do anything to the young man. What did that mean? It meant that the young man had means that even Long Zun was wary of. If he was willing to step in, all their problems would be solved. However, would the young man help them? On the plains. When Yi Zhong returned to the plains, he was stunned when he saw the people on the plains. There were originally more than 300 people. Now, only half of them were left. Where are the rest? Yi Zhong looked at the remaining 100 people and frowned. They all entered the Divine Demon Forest. One of the burly men replied. What? Yi Zhong was stunned and said angrily, Didn't I tell them not to go? When they heard you say that the Divine Demon Forest has a heaven-defying artifact and the inheritance of the law, they couldn't help but run in. No matter how I tried to persuade them, they wouldn't listen. The burly man shook his head. It's not that there is, it's possible. Back then, even I had to rely on Long Zun to come out alive. Now that they ran in, aren't they courting death? They really overestimate themselves. Yi Zhong's face was full of anger. It can't be. Everyone looked at each other. What kind of person was Yi Zhong? The Grand Hall Master of the Dragon God Hall. His cultivation was comparable to the ancestral dragons. Even such a terrifying existence had to rely on Long Zun to come out alive? It seemed that they had made the right choice not to follow those people into the forest. Otherwise, they would have lost their lives. In the evening, the 7 ancestral dragons returned with a group of people. There were about 500 people. In this way, there were a total of 650 people here. When they found out that half of them had barged into the divine demon forest, the 6 ancestral dragons were furious. "Old Yi, what's wrong with you? You can't even watch over a few people?" The young man in blood-red clothes glared at Yi Zhong angrily. "Their legs are on their bodies. What can I do if they want to go in?" Yi Zhong snorted and ignored them. He closed his eyes and meditated. "This old thing." A cold light flashed in the young man's eyes. He looked at the woman in white and transmitted a message: "Yi Zhong is unreliable. If we go out again, we need to leave someone here to keep an eye on him. Don't let this happen again." The woman in white and the other 5 nodded. They were also very angry. It took them a lot of effort to find these people. They were cannon fodder to deal with Li Bu, and Qin Feiyang. Now that they had left, wouldn't it mean that they had wasted a day? Other than Lord Long Zun, there was no one else who could make Yi Zhong bow his head and obey orders. "Lord Ancestral Dragon, can we enter the divine demon forest?" Suddenly, those who had just arrived did not know what was going on and could not help but ask. "No. If anyone dares to enter the divine demon forest without permission, don't blame me for being merciless." The ancestral dragons were furious. When they heard this, they became even angrier. They stared at the group of people with bone-piercing killing intent in their eyes. The group of people shrunk their necks and immediately became obedient. Chapter 27:16. Day after day, year after year. The ancestral dragons would go out almost every day. Not only that, but they would also let the people on the plains go out to look for people. Of course, these people were the ones they could trust. They were the minions of the dragon clan. After all, there were many people in Divine Land who had been trying to curry favor with the dragons. There was strength in numbers. There were more and more people on the plains day by day. 10 years later, there were already 50 to 60,000 people on the plains. 50 years later, the number of people had reached more than 300,000. Time flew by. More than 100 years had passed. At this moment, the plains and the tens of thousands of miles outside the plains were already crowded with people. This is a bit beyond our expectations. On a certain mountain ridge, Qin Feiyang and the others stood at a commanding height, looking at the sea of people in front of them. There was a trace of shock on their faces. They originally thought that there would be at most a few 100,000 people alive, but now there were as many as 1 million people here. And there was still a steady stream of people coming to this place. As for the cultivation of these 1 million people, most of them were in the 9 heavens realm. This was a force that could not be ignored. "Young master, if these people can all be taken under our command, then in time, they will definitely become a main force to destroy the dragons," the beast sovereign said excitedly. "What do you mean?" Qin Feiyang was stunned. "That's right. We can't just look for those hidden powerhouses, the others are also very important. So, I suggest that we subdue all of them," the beast sovereign said. "Subdue all of them?" Qin Feiyang was stunned. There were 1 million people, how could he have so many resources to provide? Although there were many spirit veins and crystal veins in the Black Tortoise realm, these spirit veins and crystal veins had been distributed to the creatures in the Black Tortoise realm. And the spirit veins and crystal veins in the Devil's Land could not be given away casually. This was a problem. And it was a big problem. The beast sovereign shook his head and said, "There is no need to consider resources. No need to consider. If there are no resources, how can we train them? If we don't train them, then they won't be of much use. Qin Feiyang frowned. The Beast Emperor smiled and said, Young lord, have you forgotten that there are still the west, east, and south of the divine land? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Although you've plundered a lot of resources in the north, there's still the west, east, and south. These three places also have large amounts of resources. With the resources of these three places, how could they not be able to feed these people? The Beast Emperor said. You old bastard, you are indeed a heartless fellow. But I like it. The white-eyed wolf laughed heartily, then turned to Qin Feiyang and said, Little Qin Zi, weren't you planning to loot the Dragon God Palace? The resources of the Dragon God Palace in the north are enough to nurture these people. This, Qin Feiyang hesitated. Wang Ming looked at Qin Feiyang and said, Young lord, we have the right time, the right place, and the right people. There's no need to hesitate. The madman glanced at Qin Feiyang, then at the Beast Emperor and Wang Ming. He shook his head and said, You don't understand. Huh? The three of them looked at the madman suspiciously. This kid is most afraid of trouble. He doesn't want to provoke a few or dozens of people, let alone 1,000,000 people. The madman said. I see. The three of them were enlightened. The white-eyed wolf thought for a moment, then shook his head and said, It's indeed troublesome. Forget it. It'll be a pity if we don't. The fact that these people were able to come to the forest of gods and demons alive shows that they are quite strong. Wang Ming shook his head. How about this? Young lord, you just need to subdue them. We'll take care of the management. Yang Li said. You'll take care of it? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Yes. Wang Ming and I are the divine emperors of the Dragon Slayer Palace. We can do that. Yang Li smiled. A rare look of confidence appeared on Wang Ming's face. Qin Feiyang frowned and said, But I have other plans for you. What plans? The two of them were suspicious. You'll continue to stay in the Dragon Slayer Palace. On the surface, you'll still be the subordinates of Venerable Cloud and the Beast Emperor, but in fact, you'll be secretly assisting my two ancestors. Qin Feiyang said. Assisting them? The two of them were stunned for a moment, then shook their heads and smiled. That's not necessary at all. That's right. Qin Batian and Lu Zhengyang are very capable people. Also, they have 4 divine emperors under them. Wang Ming and Yang Li don't have to stay in the Dragon Slayer Palace at all. The Beast Emperor nodded. In that case, Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment, then nodded and said, All right, I'll listen to you. But let me say this first, I'm only in charge of subduing them and providing them with resources. You'll be in charge of everything else. Just thinking about 1,000,000 people made his hair stand on end, let alone managing them. Don't worry. Leave it to us. Wang Ming patted his chest and said with a smile. There's one more important thing. You're the strongest fighting force around me, so you can't neglect your cultivation. I hope to see you break through to the great success stage, or even the consummate indestructible stage. Qin Feiyang said. The consummate indestructible stage? The two of them looked at each other. To be honest, although they were at the initial indestructible stage, they had never thought about the consummate indestructible stage. Because it was too difficult. There was almost no hope. The maximum they could reach was the great success stage of the indestructible stage. That was the level of the Beast Emperor, Yizhong, and the various ancestral dragons. This might be their final destination. One must be confident. Especially now that you're following me, you must be even more confident. Qin Feiyang said. All right. We'll work hard. The two of them nodded, but they didn't sound confident at all. Qin Feiyang looked at them and didn't say anything else. Confidence was something that some people were born with, some were nurtured, and some were stimulated. For Wang Ming and Crazy, what they needed was the last method, stimulation. But to stimulate it, they needed an opportunity. Right now, he hadn't found this opportunity. So no matter what he said, the two of them would only agree verbally and wouldn't have any effect on themselves. Hey, do something serious. See who exactly is the hidden supreme expert among those people. Crazy glanced at them and said. Beast Emperor and Wang Ming looked up at the dense sea of people and shook their heads. There's too many, it's hard to tell. But we still have to look. Crazy said. Yes. Beast Emperor nodded. After pondering for a while, he looked at Wang Ming and Crazy and said, you basically know all the hidden supreme experts. Why don't we split up and look? Okay. The two of them nodded. Then be careful. Qin Feiyang reminded them. The three of them nodded and hid their auras, disappearing into the mountains below. Night fell. The ancestral dragons returned. Beside the boulder. The young man in blood-red clothes frowned. It's been more than 100 years. Why aren't Li Bu, and Qin Feiyang here yet? Could they have changed their appearances and hid in the crowd? Golden Dragon Ancestral Dragon asked. I don't think so. I've checked these people with the Heavenly Eye Stone. None of them have changed their appearances. And I don't see Beast Emperor either. Did something happen to him? The ancestral dragons frowned, looking a little frustrated. Suddenly, they looked at Yi Zhong, who had been silent all this while. Old man Yi, let's not talk about Qin Feiyang and Beast Emperor. Let's talk about your disciple first. If he and Crazy aren't dead, where could they have gone? Silver Dragon Ancestral Dragon asked. I don't know. Yi Zhong shook his head. The young master in blood-red clothes said unhappily, aren't you Li Bu's master? Why don't you know? Do I have to know everything just because I'm his master? What kind of logic is this? According to your logic, since you're the ancestral dragon of dragons, shouldn't you know the whereabouts of all the dragons? Yi Zhong was a little annoyed. This was a completely unreasonable statement. Hearing this, the young man in blood-red clothes looked a little embarrassed. He looked at the woman in white clothes and changed the topic. I don't know about Li Bu, and Crazy, but I think Qin Feiyang might still be in the ancient city of Qingyu. I think so too. There's a time array in the ancient city of Qingyu. They should be taking this opportunity to raise their cultivation to the perfected Nine Heavens realm. Silver Dragon Ancestral Dragon nodded. Who cares about him? We'll continue to look for him tomorrow. Because he can't stay in the ancient city of Qingyu forever. He'll come to the forest of gods and devils sooner or later. By then, it'll be his doomsday. The young man in blood-red clothes sneered. Another half a month passed. Whoosh! Beast Emperor and Wang Ming finally returned. How is it? Qin Feiyang asked. Beast Emperor shook his head and said, we didn't see a single one. What? Qin Feiyang couldn't help frowning. How could there not be a single one? One had to know. Before entering the hell of the Nether King, he had discovered that there were hidden supreme powerhouses hiding in the crowd. Could it be that they had all died in the hell of the Nether King? But how could this be possible? Which supreme powerhouse didn't have a few life-saving means? As long as one didn't provoke the blood demon race, it wouldn't be a problem to survive. If there was anyone who overestimated themselves and provoked the blood demon race, they could only apologize. Even if one was a supreme powerhouse, they would still have to die. But there wasn't a single one. This was indeed strange. Qin Feiyang lowered his head and pondered. Crazy couldn't help frowning as well. What are you doing? White-eyed Wolf looked at Crazy. Nonsense, of course I'm thinking about the reason behind this. Crazy rolled his eyes. Fool. With little Qin Z, just use your brain. What are you thinking about? You're hurting my brain cells. White-eyed wolf looked down on him. Crazy was stunned. He glanced at Qin Feiyang and chuckled. That makes sense. On the side, Beast Emperor and Wang Ming were speechless as they looked at Crazy and White-eyed Wolf. If thinking about a problem could hurt his brain cells, did that mean that moving his hands would also hurt his blood cells? Why was this wolf cub so outrageous? More importantly, someone like Crazy was actually joining in the fun. Looking at the situation, it wouldn't be long before Crazy was completely led astray by White-eyed Wolf. A moment later, Qin Feiyang frowned and looked up at everyone. He shook his head and sighed. I neglected a problem. What problem? Everyone was stunned and looked at him suspiciously. Chapter 27:17. These reclusive omnipotent masters did not want to offend the dragons, so they have been hiding from the world. It's the same for now. Seeing the ancestral dragons gather humans on such a large scale, they will definitely think that there is a conspiracy. Given their character, they will not show themselves easily. Qin Feiyang said. Hearing this, the Beast Emperor nodded immediately. That makes sense. Even if they have come to the forest of gods and demons, they will hide far away. Wang Ming looked at Qin Feiyang and asked, shall we search far away? No need. If these people are bent on hiding, it will be very difficult to find them. Don't waste time. Qin Feiyang waved his hands. Are we just going to let it go? Wang Ming asked. Of course not. Their target is the forest of gods and demons. Even if we can't meet here, we will meet them in the forest of gods and demons sooner or later. At the very least, they have to leave the hell of Hades. To leave hell, they have to go to the square of gods and demons. At that time, at this point, Qin Feiyang looked at the Beast Emperor and said, go to the square of gods and demons and keep an eye on them. It will be best if you can persuade them to surrender, but if not, don't offend them. Wait for me to come out and deal with them. Understood. The Beast Emperor nodded. Qin Feiyang looked at the plains and a cold glint flashed in his eyes. Let's move then. Whoosh. Immediately, the group did not hide anymore. They soared into the sky and flew toward the plains. Apart from Qin Feiyang and the White-eyed Wolf, everyone had changed their appearances. Therefore, even if everyone saw them, they would not recognize Lunatic and the Beast Emperor. The light of the evil moon illuminated the mountains and rivers. Although there were millions of people here, the plains were extremely quiet. Everyone closed their eyes and rested. Even if they chatted, they whispered or secretly transmitted their voices. This aura. Suddenly, at the edge of the sea of people, an elder at the perfected ninth heaven's realm trembled and looked up at the void in the distance. Immediately, he saw 5 people and 1 wolf streaking across the night sky like lightning, heading toward the plains. It's him. Qin Feiyang. The old man's eyes trembled as he roared. Qin Feiyang? This roar immediately broke the silence. Everyone opened their eyes and looked over in surprise. It really was him. Beside the huge rock. The various ancestral dragons opened their eyes abruptly and looked up. When they saw Qin Feiyang, their eyes were filled with murderous intent. Immediately after, the 7 ancestral dragons stood up, and a bone-piercing cold current spread out. In an instant, it was as if the plains had entered the dead of winter. Everyone couldn't help but shiver. Sigh. Yi Zhong also slowly opened his eyes. He looked up at Qin Feiyang and the others and sighed in his heart. Being so brazen and unscrupulous meant that Qin Feiyang didn't put these million people in his eyes at all. He looked at the backs of the 7 ancestral dragons and could not help but shake his head and sigh. How long are these ancestral dragons going to act smart for? They didn't realize, the current Qin Feiyang was no longer the Qin Feiyang who had just entered the divine land. If this continued, he would get himself killed. Everyone listen up, whoever can kill Qin Feiyang, I will bring him to the Divine Dragon Island. Divine Dragon Island has limitless resources and even time arrays. Moreover, I will give him a heaven-defying divine art. The blood-red robed youth suddenly roared. What? Enter the Divine Dragon Island. There is a heaven-defying divine art? The million people here were in an uproar. Whether it was resources, time arrays, or heaven-defying divine art, they were all irresistible temptations for them. Because these things, for example, heaven-defying divine art, even the giants of the divine land did not have it. But, kill Qin Feiyang? They didn't have the guts. What are you afraid of? Although he has heaven-defying divine artifact and divine art, he is now in hell. He can't use these divine arts and divine artifacts. Moreover, look at his cultivation, he is only at the greater 9th heaven realm. Many of you have a higher cultivation than him. The blood-red robed youth roared. But he was extremely shocked. He had broken through to the greater 9th heaven realm. This speed was too terrifying. No. He must be killed here. That's right. He is indeed at the greater 9th heaven realm. Lord Ancestral Dragon is right. In hell, we can't use heaven-defying divine arts and divine artifacts. We don't have to be afraid of him. Everyone became restless. And, the 10 heaven-defying divine artifacts of our dragons are all with him. Moreover, he has a heaven-defying divine artifact himself. He even has an independent world. As long as you kill him, we dragons don't want any of these things. They are all yours. The blood-red robed youth increased the price again. Boom! Immediately. Some of them could no longer hold back the greed in their hearts. Their aura suddenly erupted and they rushed toward Qin Feiyang and the others with murderous intent. When one of them moved, there would definitely be others who would follow suit. Not to mention that there were tens of thousands of them. With so many people rushing toward Qin Feiyang, the others naturally had the courage to do so. One by one, they rushed towards Qin Feiyang in a rush. Because other than Yi Zhong and the ancestral dragons, no one else knew about Qin Feiyang's means. Therefore, in their opinion, Qin Feiyang who was in hell and couldn't use any heaven-defying divine artifacts was like a fish on the chopping board, unable to withstand a single blow. Greed and lust had clouded their rationality. When they were a little more clear-headed, they would think that if there was such a good thing, would the ancestral dragons give this opportunity to them? They would have done it themselves. Interesting. In the distance. On a mountain peak. A middle-aged man in a long golden robe stood at the edge of the cliff, looking at the plains from afar. He was about 1.9 meters tall, and his long golden hair was as dazzling as gold leaf. He was about 30 years old and had an extraordinary temperament. At this moment, the corners of his mouth were pursed with a trace of playfulness. In his arms, there was a woman nestled in his arms. This woman was also in her 30s. Her clothes were very revealing, and her enchanting figure exuded a mature charm. Although she was a little old, she looked very attractive, and there were no wrinkles at the corners of her eyes. Her skin was as soft as water. Her smile was very charming. The woman was also looking at the battlefield. When she heard the middle-aged man's words, she nodded and smiled charmingly. It's indeed interesting. On the other side. There was a burly man, who was more than 2 meters tall, with thick black short hair. He wore a pair of large black pants, revealing his 8-pack abs, which were full of explosive power. Ordinary people who stood in front of him couldn't help but feel afraid. The burly man was also looking at the battlefield at this time, and there was a trace of mockery on his cold face. It seemed that he was mocking the millions of people. At the same time, there was also an old man hiding at the top of a huge mountain, watching the battlefield. The old man's attire was very low-key. His clothes were tattered, his hair was messy, and he wore a pair of old straw sandals on his feet. His entire person was sallow and emaciated, as if he was malnourished. However, his dark eyes shone with a bright light. "So you're hiding here?" Suddenly, a very hoarse voice sounded behind the old man. When the old man heard the voice, he raised his eyebrows, but he didn't turn his head to look. He said in disgust, "What an annoying old witch. Aren't you an annoying old man as well?" The hoarse voice sounded again. An old woman in a green robe walked out of a small forest at the back of the mountain. The old woman was also very old and emaciated. She was holding a green snake-shaped walking stick in her hand. The old woman staggered as if she would fall if the wind blew. She walked to the side of the old man and looked at the battlefield. "I didn't expect an old witch like you to be interested in such a small scene," the old man said. "Small scene? 7 ancestral dragons, Yizhong, Qin Feiyang, there are more than 1,000,000 people. If this is a small scene, then tell me, what is a big scene?" the old woman said. "Humph!" the old man snorted. In order to deal with Qin Feiyang, they actually mobilized so many people. The ancestral dragons are really interesting. The old woman shook her head. "I think the ancestral dragons are at their wits' end. But it's really unexpected. The dignified ancestral dragons were actually forced to such a state by a kid. It's quite sad." Suddenly, another voice sounded behind them. However, this voice was very strange. It actually had a childish tone, as if it was a child. However, when they heard this voice, the old woman and the old man couldn't help but frown, and there seemed to be some fear in their expressions. The two of them turned their heads and saw a child walking behind them. This child looked to be about 5 or 6 years old. His height was estimated to be about half a meter. He wore a big red dudu and a small bell hung around his neck. As he walked, it made a tinkling sound. At first glance, this child looked like an auspicious doll. He was chubby, pink, harmless, innocent and cute. However, the fear in the eyes of the old woman and the old man was enough to show that this was not an ordinary child. "Are you following us?" The old woman raised her eyebrows. "Following you? Don't joke around. I just happened to pass by and came to watch the show." There was a trace of disdain in the child's eyes. "Passing by? Even ghosts wouldn't believe you if you said that," the old man said. "Believe it or not," the child said indifferently and raised his head to look at the plains. There seemed to be a trace of blood in his eyes. As for the existence of these mysterious people, neither Qin Feiyang's group nor the people on the plains noticed. On the plains, murderous intent filled the sky. Everyone's eyes were fixed on Qin Feiyang. As for the white-eyed wolf, madman, and beast emperor, they were directly ignored. "Young master, this is going to be a fight." Wang Ming looked at those people who seemed to have gone crazy and shook his head. "There's a good saying, kill one to warn the rest. As long as we kill a few, the others will naturally behave." Qin Feiyang stopped in the air and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly with a hint of a smile. However, Beast Emperor and Wang Ming both felt a chill. Chapter 27:18. Everyone instinctively retreated to the side. Because they knew that with Qin Feiyang's strength, it was enough to deal with all of this. Moreover, Madman, Beast Emperor, Wang Ming and Yang Li couldn't casually make a move. After all, once they made a move, their identities might be exposed. As for the white-eyed wolf, Perhaps because it had been cultivating in seclusion, it had developed a lazy habit. Unless it was absolutely necessary, it wouldn't make a move. Qin Feiyang, be obedient and don't move, will give you a quick death. If you dare to resist, then you will die miserably. The group of people at the front stared at Qin Feiyang and laughed sinisterly. Without exception. They were all at the great perfection ninth heaven's realm. Die miserably, Qin Feiyang murmured. Was he a little sheep on the chopping board? Boom! His aura suddenly erupted. Courting death. The group of people was furious. They had already said it so clearly, yet he still dared to release his aura. Was he looking down on them? One of the burly men took the lead to rush in front of Qin Feiyang, his divine power surging out as he threw a punch at Qin Feiyang. He was at the great perfection ninth heaven's realm. Therefore, he had full confidence in this punch. Even if it was at the great perfection ninth heaven's realm, it would be able to kill him in seconds, let alone Qin Feiyang who was at the great perfection ninth heaven's realm. Without a heaven-defying divine artifact, without a heaven-defying divine art, Qin Feiyang was just an ordinary person. You are the ones courting death. Qin Feiyang smiled coldly as he suddenly raised his arm and grabbed the burly man's wrist. The burly man was about to laugh at Qin Feiyang for overestimating himself, but he realized that the power coming from Qin Feiyang's hand was stronger than his. What was going on? Wasn't he at the great perfection ninth heaven's realm? Who gave you the courage to attack me, Qin Feiyang? Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed with a cold light, his 5 fingers suddenly clenched, and with a crisp crack, the burly man's arm shattered on the spot. Blood dyed the sky red. Ah, the big man screamed in pain. However, there was no fear in his eyes, only resentment and greed. Kill. The others also finally arrived, their battle cries shaking the heavens. You're courting death. Qin Feiyang harumphed coldly. His godly power gushed out like a tidal wave. The 4 styles of the fire phoenix appeared. Rumble. A tremendous godly aura roared in all directions. Ah, miserable cries rang out as dozens of people lost their lives. That's a supreme-grade divine art. The people behind him were shocked. What are you afraid of? As long as it's not a heaven-defying technique, he's just a clown. Another person sneered. That's right. We also have deity arts, why should we be afraid of him? Everyone, activate your divine arts. Kill. Immediately. Tens of thousands of deity arts appeared out of nowhere. There were perfect-grade deity arts, pinnacle-grade deity arts, and a few legendary-grade deity arts. However, he didn't see any supreme-grade divine arts. After all, these people were the real ordinary people. To them, a supreme-grade deity technique was an extravagant hope that was out of their reach. If you don't even have a supreme-grade deity art, how dare you call me a clown? Qin Feiyang was so angry that he laughed. The 4 styles of the fire phoenix crushed all the way. Puff! People kept spurting out blood. This was the backlash caused by the destruction of their deity arts. After a while. Boom! Finally, the 4 styles of the fire phoenix was blocked by several legendary-grade deity arts. After all, the people who attacked now were all at the peak 9th heaven realm. Their cultivation was 2 small realms higher than Qin Feiyang's. Although the fire phoenix art was a supreme-grade deity art, it was only 1 level higher than a legendary-grade deity art. In other words, Qin Feiyang's overall strength was 1 level lower than those who had legendary-grade deity arts. Look! Even if he has a supreme-grade deity art, so what? As long as we work together, killing him won't be a problem at all. Seeing that the fire phoenix art was blocked, everyone was excited. Sigh. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Ignorance was too scary. Thinking back, even if he was at the 9th heaven realm, he could kill all the creatures below the imperishable realm, let alone now. Kill. Snatch his heaven-defying deity artifact. And that independent world. If we can get that independent world, then we'll be the god of creation. Qin Feiyang's cultivation is so fast. Maybe it's because of that independent world. Kill him quickly. Countless people rushed over. Their murderous aura soared into the sky. Qin Feiyang glanced over. Murderous intent also appeared in his eyes. Boom! With the emergence of a terrifying aura, Qin Feiyang's cultivation instantly soared to the peak 9th heaven realm. This was naturally the rising dragon art. Now, not only could this rising dragon art be activated twice a day, but it could also last for 2 hours each time. For him, the rising dragon art was already a trump card. And as Qin Feiyang's cultivation increased, the power of the 4 styles of the fire phoenix that was blocked also suddenly skyrocketed. Boom! The scene of destruction appeared again. What's going on? Why did his cultivation increase to the peak 9th heaven realm? Everyone was happy. They were even thinking about how to fight for Qin Feiyang's treasures after he died. And the appearance of this scene immediately caused them to fall into a state of shock. How dare you say that I, Qin Feiyang, am a clown? Qin Feiyang said coldly. The 4 styles of the fire phoenix attacked the crowd in front of him. Screams immediately resounded, and hundreds of people's blood splattered in the sky. Everyone was shocked. The cultivation of the peak 9th heaven realm, coupled with the sovereign-level fire phoenix art, it seemed that none of them was a match for this person. Who has a sovereign-level divine art? Someone shouted. I have it. I have it too. There's more. Qin Feiyang, your end is here. Hundreds of people rushed out of the crowd. They were all young men and women with extraordinary temperaments. There were more than 1 million people, and it was not strange that 100 people had a sovereign-level divine art. Moreover, this also showed how rare a sovereign-level divine art was in the divine prefecture. Because this was equivalent to 1 in 10,000. Only 1 in 10,000 people could have a sovereign-level divine art. Qin Feiyang looked at them one by one and said indifferently, looking at your appearance, you shouldn't be ordinary people. I'm from the 10th island of the Southern Dragon God Palace. I'm from the Eastern Dragon God Palace Island. Almost all of these people were from the Dragon God Palace. Only a few dozen people were from the Divine Prefecture's rich and powerful families. There were many rich and powerful families in the Divine Prefecture. And their foundations were extremely deep. Some of the big families' foundations were even more terrifying than the city lord's palace. And a big family like this naturally had the ability and financial resources to obtain 1 or 2 sovereign-level divine arts. Qin Feiyang, I'll kindly advise you to stop resisting. Look at the millions of people here. Even if your means are heaven-defying, you're no match for us. Unless you activate a heaven-defying divine art and a heaven-defying divine artifact. However, you know the rules of hell. The consequences of using a heaven-defying divine artifact will be even more miserable. More than 100 people stared at Qin Feiyang and sneered. In other words, in your eyes, I, Qin Feiyang, have been relying on a heaven-defying divine artifact all these years? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Isn't that so? Without a heaven-defying divine artifact, what are you? I can kill you in seconds by myself. A young man in purple stepped out with an overwhelming aura. He then raised his arm and went straight for Qin Feiyang's head. So in your eyes, I, Qin Feiyang, am so unbearable. Qin Feiyang suddenly smiled. Don't act all high and mighty like that. Now I'll show you what a real genius is. The young man in purple snorted. That's right. If we also have a heaven-defying divine artifact, Qin Feiyang won't be able to show off all the time. A young man in black behind also said with disdain. Qin Feiyang looked at the young man in black and then looked at the young man in purple. He said lightly, "Fine, then let me see a real genius." After saying that, he raised his hand and punched at the young man in purple. The young man in purple's eyes flashed coldly. The big hand that was reaching for Qin Feiyang's head suddenly sank and punched at Qin Feiyang's fist. Boom! The two fists collided. Crack! The young man in purple's arm was immediately torn open. His whole body was also sent flying. Is this the strength of a genius? Qin Feiyang looked at the young man in purple in astonishment. The young man in purple didn't become angry out of humiliation. Instead, he had a superior attitude and praised, "You are indeed as strong as the rumors say. Thank you for your praise. But don't talk nonsense. Let me see the strength of a genius like you." Qin Feiyang's face was full of impatience. "Since you are eager to die, I'll fulfill your wish." The young man in purple smiled proudly. As divine power surged, a huge monster suddenly appeared in the sky. It was a giant golden beast with dense fangs and looked extremely ferocious. "Kill him!" The young man in purple roared. Roar! The giant golden beast suddenly roared and pounced at Qin Feiyang with bared fangs and brandished claws. "This is your supreme level divine art?" Qin Feiyang asked. "That's right." The young man in purple said proudly. "I see." Qin Feiyang nodded. He raised his arm and gently pointed at the void with his fingertip. Boom! Immediately, a terrifying invisible force emerged like a volcanic eruption. Void returning art. Another supreme level divine art? The young man in black and the others behind were shocked. Boom! The invisible force pounced on the giant golden beast. A loud explosion suddenly sounded. In the next moment, the two supreme-level divine arts shattered at the same time. Puff! The young man in purple spat out a mouthful of blood. Qin Feiyang, on the other hand, relied on his powerful physical body to forcibly block the backlash from the shattering of the divine art. Even his body didn't sway at all. The strength of a genius, it's not that great. Qin Feiyang looked at the young man in purple and shook his head with a smile. Don't be arrogant. The young man in purple flew into a rage out of humiliation. Am I being arrogant? It seems that the one who has been arrogant is you. After Qin Feiyang finished speaking, the void returning art and the fire phoenix 4 styles appeared at the same time. With monstrous power, they charged at the young man in purple. Battle soul, open! The young man in purple roared. A sword-shaped battle soul immediately appeared. It looked like it was made of gold and emitted a terrifying aura. At the same time, he activated the supreme-level divine art again. Kill! Following his roar, the giant golden beast formed by the supreme-level divine art and the sword-shaped battle soul madly charged at the invisible force formed by the fire phoenix 4 styles and the void returning art. Boom! However, with an earth-shattering explosion, the giant golden beast and the sword-shaped battle soul were shattered on the spot. Puff! The young man in purple spat out blood. His entire body was like a rubber ball as he flew out and fell in the void. Carry him away. Next. Qin Feiyang smirked and glanced at the young man in black and the others. Chapter 27:19. He was defeated just like that? The young man in black and the others were stunned. They thought that Qin Feiyang, who didn't have any godly spells or godly weapons, was nothing. However, he didn't expect that the result would also be a scene of utter destruction. It seemed that they had underestimated him. I'll do it. Looking at Qin Feiyang's provocative eyes, the young man in black took a step forward with a strong aura. Boom! He didn't waste any time and immediately used a supreme spell. Clang! There were 9 black swords. Although they were condensed from divine power, each sword looked like it was made of divine iron, and their sharpness could tear the sky and the earth apart. 9 palace sword array. Every single one of these swords is comparable to an autarch-level divine artifact. Die! The young man in black sneered, and the 9 black swords instantly formed a sword array and charged toward Qin Feiyang. 9 palace sword array? Qin Feiyang was stunned. It looked good, but unfortunately, it was not on the same level as Wang Ming's God-slaying sword array and Sky Destroyer sword array. 9 swords, is it? I'm sorry, but I have a total of 90 sword images. Every single sword image is comparable to an utmost exalt-level deity technique. As Qin Feiyang finished speaking, the Guiyuan sword art was activated, and 90 sword shadows appeared. The young man in black's pupils shrank. The power of these 90 sword shadows was indeed comparable to a supreme weapon. I can crush you in terms of numbers. What else do you have to fight me? Qin Feiyang's face was full of disdain. Without any fancy sword array, he directly slashed at the 9 palace killing array. Boom! In just a moment, the so-called 9 palace killing array was crushed to pieces by the 90 sword shadows. Carry him away. Next. Qin Feiyang also spoke. He was incomparably indifferent, as if he had done a very simple thing. 3 supreme-grade divine arts. The young man in purple who had been seriously injured earlier had recovered. Looking at the 90 sword shadows floating above Qin Feiyang's head, he was in disbelief. He alone actually possessed 3 supreme-grade deity arts. Since when had this supreme-grade deity art become so worthless? Hurry up. Don't waste my time. Why don't you all come at me together? Qin Feiyang glanced at the 100 people and said indifferently. Arrogant. How arrogant. He actually asked them to come at him together. Everyone was shocked. How much courage did it take for her to say such words? After all, these hundreds of people were all top geniuses of the divine prefecture. They were invincible among the younger generation. But even so, Qin Feiyang still had a contemptuous attitude. Who could be a match for such courage? Boom! Qin Feiyang's words had undoubtedly infuriated the violet-clothed young man and the others. Fine. We'll grant you your wish. Everyone, let's kill him. The young man in purple. Roar. Clang clang. For a moment, divine arts appeared one after another, and all of them were supreme-grade divine arts. The void space and mountains. Just the aura released caused a doomsday-like scene. Go to hell. The young man in purple roared. The black-clothed youth was also brimming with killing intent. The 9 palaces sword formation carried a world-destroying sharpness as it charged towards Qin Feiyang. Boring. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Whoosh. Suddenly, more than 100 incarnations appeared behind him. As soon as these incarnations appeared, they all activated the Guiyuan sword technique. Immediately, there were more than 10,000 flaming sword shadows in the sky. Clang! 10,000 flaming sword shadows rushed toward them. There was no suspense. It was an irresistible situation. The young man in purple and the others' weapons were constantly destroyed. They were also sent flying one after another. In just a few breaths, they were all lying in the void. Their faces were pale and blood was gushing out. At this moment, the arrogance, disdain, and contempt from before were all gone. What was left was fear, awe, and panic. Especially when they saw the 100 incarnations behind Qin Feiyang. They were extremely shocked. What the hell were these? Each of them was exactly the same as Qin Feiyang's original body. Are you really geniuses? Qin Feiyang looked at the embarrassed group of people suspiciously. Hearing this, the young man in purple and the others could not help but lower their heads in shame. You so-called geniuses are indeed not bad. You are almost invincible in the same realm. But unfortunately, you met me. In front of me, no matter how talented you are, you will become a fool. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Why are you so arrogant? Isn't it because you are lucky to find a few more supreme-level divine techniques? The young man in purple could not help but stare at Qin Feiyang angrily. You are wrong. He is not lucky. It is because he has a good backer. That's right. With Qin Badian and Lu Zhengyang as his backers, what can he not have? The group of people mocked and ridiculed. You don't think that these supreme-level divine techniques were given to me by the two ancestors, do you? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Isn't it? Don't tell us that you created them yourself. You have this ability. The young man in purple sneered. I originally said that you were fools, but now I feel that I am insulting the word fools. Qin Feiyang chuckled. They were really a group of frogs at the bottom of a well. What do you mean? The group of people frowned. Qin Feiyang said, You still don't understand? You are even worse than fools. Bastard! The group of people flew into a rage and took out their trump cards again, madly attacking Qin Feiyang. Not only are you fools, but you also don't know your own limits. It seems that I have really misunderstood the word genius in the past. If you are considered a genius, then mankind is really finished. Qin Feiyang's eyes turned cold. Speaking of geniuses, the lunatic behind him was the real genius. Boom! The more than 100 clones attacked, and with absolute combat power, the group of people was blasted to the ground in the void. You think you are infallible and can defeat me, but little do you know that you are not even qualified to be my opponent. And I, whether it was in the past or now, have never regarded you as my opponent. Because, I, Qin Feiyang's opponent, is them. Qin Feiyang pointed at the ancestral dragons. The killing intent in his eyes was not concealed. The 7 ancestral dragons' eyes darkened. Even if these humans had the supreme-level divine secret art, they were still not Qin Feiyang's opponent. When the young man in purple and the others heard this, they could not help but be shocked. It turned out that, in Qin Feiyang's eyes, they were not even qualified to be his opponent. Although Qin Feiyang was a young man like them, whether it was in terms of means or state of mind, Qin Feiyang had far surpassed them. Recalling their previous attitude, even they felt that it was ridiculous. Among the younger generation, there is no one who can stop Qin Feiyang. On the mountain peak in the distance, the old man in straw sandals shook his head and sighed. Yes. His target has long been the older generation. I'm afraid it won't be long before even us of the older generation will pale in front of him. The old woman in green nodded. This is the state of mind. Qin Feiyang's state of mind has far surpassed his peers. His vision is not on the same level as the other young people. What he sees and thinks is naturally not something the other young people can compare to. I like this kid. The child standing next to them smiled. The old man in straw sandals and the old woman in green turned to look at the child. In the sky above the plain. Don't you hate humans? Why are you still hiding behind us humans? Is this how the ancestral dragons behave? Qin Feiyang looked at the ancestral dragons, his eyes full of mockery. The young man in red clenched his fists and shouted, What are you waiting for? There are 1,000,000 of us. Even if everyone spits, we can drown him. That's right. Activate your divine arts and kill him together. It will definitely be a one-hit kill. The ancestral dragon, Silver Dragon, shouted. Yes. Follow us and kill. The young man in purple roared. Boom! The supreme divine art was activated, and the golden beast roared out. If we don't kill him today, he will kill us. Everyone, it's time for us to work together. Follow us and kill him. The young man in black roared. Kill. The words of the two instantly ignited everyone's killing intent. Boom! More than 1,000,000 people attacked at this moment. Countless divine arts, divine weapons, fighting souls, they were like ants, densely packed and filled the entire world. The terrifying aura destroyed all directions. Working together to kill me? Qin Feiyang murmured as he looked at these people, his eyes full of disappointment. If these people were willing to show the courage and unity to fight against the dragons, no. There was no need for all of them. If only half of this courage and unity were needed, the humans would not be suppressed by the dragons to this extent. This was the classic example of a bully in one's nest. In front of the dragons, they lowered their heads like ants, but in front of him, who was also a human, they wanted to kill him. These people. What was the use of having them? Boom! The actions of these people had undoubtedly aroused Qin Feiyang's murderous intent. Originally, he wanted to listen to the Beast Emperor's suggestion to take these people under his command and train them as the main force to fight against the dragons in the future. But now, it seemed that these people were definitely not worth his time to train. Training them was a complete waste of resources, time, and energy. These people, there should only be one outcome. Death. Swoosh. 3,000 clones were activated. 3,000 clones appeared behind him. Qin Feiyang shouted, "I want everyone here to die." Understood. The 3,000 clones nodded, and the dragon souls roared out in unison. All of them to die. The Beast Emperor's gaze trembled. Didn't he say that he wouldn't kill them? Why did he suddenly change his mind? Frenzy secretly snorted, "If it was me, I would also kill them all." Why? The Beast Emperor frowned. Look at them. Why didn't they unite when facing the dragons? They only know how to be a bully in one's nest. For people like them, living is a waste of air. Frenzy said with a face full of disgust. The Beast Emperor couldn't find a reason to refute these words. Because as the Emperor of the Dragon Slayer Palace, he had long seen through this point. Perhaps, the initial suggestion was a mistake. These people were not worth training. Chapter 27:20. Kill them all. Hearing Qin Feiyang's murderous words, not only the Beast Emperor, but also Yi Zhong and the other ancestral dragons trembled. There were 1,000,000 people, and all of them were killed? Was he crazy? At the same time, the old man with straw sandals, the old woman in green, the little child, the burly man, the middle-aged man in gold, the enchanting woman, their faces also turned pale with fright. Kill 1,000,000 people? Even they didn't dare to think about it. What kind of young man was Qin Feiyang? Where did he find the confidence to say such big words? In their eyes, it was simply a fantasy. With the strength of one person, he was able to fight against 1,000,000 people. And most of them were in the 9 heavens realm. Half of them were in the peak 9 heavens realm. Every peak 9 heavens realm had mastered at least the perfect level of deity technique. The young man in purple and his group even had supreme-level deity techniques. Such a huge force, other than the strongest of the undead realm, who had the ability to fight against it? Not to mention killing them all. At the same time, the 1,000,000 people in the sky above the plain were stunned when they heard Qin Feiyang's words. But then, their faces were full of cold smiles. He wanted to kill all of them by himself? He must be dreaming. There should be a limit to his arrogance. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? He said he wants to kill us all, haha, ridiculous. You want to fight against millions of us with just the strength of one person? You must be dreaming. No. This is stupidity, complacency, arrogance, and overestimation of one's own capabilities. Everyone, let's show him how small he is in the face of the power of unity. The young man in purple and his group laughed. The power of unity. Qin Feiyang looked at the young man in purple and his group. So you know that the power of unity is very strong. But why didn't you unite when facing the dragons? Let me ask you, what did I, Qin Feiyang, do all of this for? Isn't it to destroy the dragons and take back the dignity that humans lost in front of the dragons? But now, you are helping the dragons to kill me, Qin Feiyang. Excuse me, are you still humans? Are you worthy of the souls who fought against the dragons and died in battle? Qin Feiyang roared. His words, sonorous, powerful, and resonant. Hearing these words, the Beast Emperor and the old man in straw sandals and his group fell silent. Even Yi Zhong lowered his head with a trace of sorrow on his face. Don't be fooled by him. It's because he's scared that he's using this trick to trick you. As long as you kill him, all the divine artifacts on him will be yours. Divine artifacts. If you miss this opportunity, you won't be able to find another one. And, I believe you should be clear about Qin Feiyang's character and style of doing things. He is a vengeful person. Today, you guys are his opponents. Once we leave the hell of the underworld, he will definitely kill you all. At that time, he will have a divine artifact and a divine art. You can only die. The blood dragon ancestor dragon shouted. When everyone heard this, their bodies and minds trembled. That's right. No one can stop Qin Feiyang's revenge. Just like the major city lord mansions in the north, they were all robbed by this person. If we let him walk out alive, none of us will be able to escape. So everyone, don't be fooled by him. Follow me and kill. The purple-clothed young man roared. The giant golden beast raised its head and roared. It carried a surging ferocious aura as it pounced towards Qin Feiyang. If we don't kill him now, when will we? The black-clothed young man also roared. Kill. In an instant. Everyone began to roar. Divine arts, divine artifacts, battle souls, densely packed, they turned into a raging wave, shattering the sky and charging toward Qin Feiyang, at this moment. The sky was collapsing. The earth was also sinking crazily. Millions of miles of mountains and rivers were instantly razed to the ground, and the sky was everywhere. This scene was the end of the world. What a sad group of people. 1,000,000 people joining forces is indeed very strong. Any creature below the imperishable realm will only end up with their bodies crushed and their bones crushed. But do you think this is useful to me, Qin Feiyang? Wrong. Let me tell you. The more people there are, the stronger I, Qin Feiyang, will be. Eye of heaven, open. Qin Feiyang suddenly let out an explosive shout. The glabella of the 3001 dragon souls floating in the air immediately split open, and a third eye appeared. Not good. Yi Zhong's expression suddenly changed. Eye of heaven. If he opened the eye of heaven, then Qin Feiyang really had the ability to slaughter 1,000,000 people with his own strength. Because the eye of heaven could copy all attack methods. No matter how many divine arts, no matter how many battle souls, it could be copied. And one had to know. At this moment, Qin Feiyang had also activated 3,000 incarnations. In other words, although Qin Feiyang was only one person, because of the existence of 3,000 incarnations, the Eye of Heaven could copy 3,000 times more than this million people. For example, the golden beast formed by the purple-clothed young man's supreme divine art, once it was copied by Qin Feiyang in his 3,000 incarnations, it would become 3,001 golden beasts. 1 against 3,001. What kind of concept was this? Not to mention a massacre, it was simply an instant kill. Qin Feiyang, stop! Yi Zhong shouted. But it was too late. Qin Feiyang, who had the intention to kill, would not let go because of Yi Zhong. All kinds of deity arts and fighting souls were continuously replicated. All of you, go to hell. Qin Feiyang muttered. With a wave of his hand, the copied divine arts, battle souls, suddenly turned into a frenzy, with the power to destroy the world, surging toward the sea of people in front of him. How is this possible? The purple-clothed young man and the others standing at the front looked at this scene with their mouths agape. Following closely. Their faces, their eyes, were filled with panic. Run! The black-clothed young man suddenly roared. But it was too late. Divine arts, battle souls, in an instant, they drowned in a flood. Miserable screams suddenly sounded, filled with despair and regret. Please, let us go. No, the purple-clothed young man roared in horror, but it was meaningless. Hundreds of golden beasts pounced, instantly tearing him to pieces. These golden beasts were copied by the Eye of Heaven. In other words, it was equivalent to him dying under his own divine arts. Qin Feiyang, spare me. The black-clothed young man also knelt in the void and begged. But it was useless. A frenzy formed by a divine art instantly rushed over, and the black-clothed young man's blood splattered across the sky. Not even his divine soul was left. No, please, we know we were wrong. Looking at this scene, the people behind could not help but feel despair. There were even people who were already fleeing. Qin Feiyang was not human at all. Divine arts, battle souls. How could a human copy all of them? Massacre, this was a merciless massacre. The whole world was filled with blood and corpses at this moment. Painful screams, helpless cries for help, were incessant, resounding throughout the world. This scene made the various ancestral dragons tremble. This scene made Yi Zhong limp on the ground powerlessly. This scene made the straw-sandal old man and the others feel their hair stand on end. Besides the white-eyed wolf, Frenzy, and the beast emperor, no one would have thought that the outcome would be like this. 1,000,000 people, such a terrifying force was actually single-handedly massacred by one person. There was no way to fight back. This Qin Feiyang, this heaven-defying battle soul, the Eye of Heaven, it was simply invincible. The massacre lasted for hundreds of breaths. 1,000,000 people were slaughtered. Only a small portion of them fled into the forest of gods and devils. The broken ground below was already blood-red, and corpses were piled up like a mountain. The smell of blood was pungent. Looking from afar, it was even more terrifying than Azura hell. The scene was dead silent at this moment. Whether it was the various ancestral dragons or the straw-sandal old man's group, they were all silently watching all of this. But in their hearts, they were overturning rivers and seas. He really did it. With the strength of one person, he massacred 1,000,000 people. Such means, such strength, looking at the current world, who could compete with him? The Eye of Heaven was already heaven-defying enough, but he actually had 3,000 clones? Wasn't this like adding wings to a tiger for Qin Feiyang? With 3,000 clones and the Eye of Heaven, he was invincible. Amazing, amazing. The Eye of Heaven is indeed a heaven-defying battle soul. An exclamation sounded. The one who spoke was the middle-aged man in golden clothes. He stood at the edge of the cliff, looking at Qin Feiyang in the sky above the plain from afar, his eyes full of fear. The enchanting woman lying in his embrace had already stood up. She was also looking at Qin Feiyang with fear in her eyes. How could there be such a crazy young man in this world? He was already so strong at the 9 heavens realm, then when he broke through to the imperishable realm, thinking of this, the woman couldn't help but shiver. Once this man broke through to the imperishable realm, even if he was only a half-step imperishable realm, he was enough to pose a huge threat to these veteran supreme experts. What a terrifying young man. On the other side. A trace of reverence appeared on the expressionless face of the burly man, who was over 2 meters tall. Powerful. On the other side of the mountain. The straw-shoe old man took a deep breath, looked at the old woman and the child, and said, "If nothing unexpected happens, this man will definitely become the strongest in the ancient world in the future, and even we will have to bow down to him." "Yes." The old woman nodded. "That depends on whether he can grow up or not. Because what he did today will definitely arouse the most intense killing intent of the dragons. When he returns to the divine land, the dragons will definitely kill him at all costs. After all, he's too much of a threat. His 2 ancestors, Qin Batian and Lu Zhengyang, are nothing compared to him now." The child shook his head. The straw-shoe old man and the old woman nodded. If they were the dragons, they would also immediately think of a way to kill Qin Feiyang. Even if it would greatly damage the dragons, they wouldn't hesitate. Chapter 27-21. Even Beast Emperor and Wang Ming couldn't help shuddering in fear when they saw this scene, let alone the ancestral dragons and the straw-shoe old man. He killed more than 1 million people just like that. This character, this method, could be said to be universally shocking. They had always thought that although Qin Feiyang was talented, he was too benevolent and righteous, and would not be able to achieve great things. Only now did they realize what kind of person Qin Feiyang was. Benevolence, righteousness, and righteousness. He only gave them to those who deserved it. He would not show any mercy to those who deserved to die. On one hand, he was righteous, and on the other hand, he was decisive. It could be said that such a person was almost perfect. But in the face of all this, Qin Feiyang himself was unperturbed. Swoosh! Qin Feiyang took a step forward and landed in the sky above the 7 ancestral dragons. Sensing the terrifying murderous aura, the 7 ancestral dragons couldn't help but feel fear in their hearts. "Do you want to kill yourselves or do you want me to do it myself?" Qin Feiyang looked down at the 7 of them and said coldly. Hearing this, the 7 of them were instantly enraged. He was a dignified ancestral dragon, revered by the world. He actually dared to use such a tone and attitude in front of them. However, at the thought that it was Qin Feiyang, they were filled with helplessness. Whether it was in the past or now, Qin Feiyang had never shown them the slightest bit of respect. With their status and strength, they could make anyone lower their heads and fear them. Only in front of Qin Feiyang was they not allowed to do so. At this very moment, Qin Feiyang had the right to speak to them in such a manner. This was because Qin Feiyang was so powerful that they were powerless. At least in hell, they no longer had the power to resist. Publicizing hell and setting a trap to harm me, this is a good plan. Unfortunately, not only did your plan not succeed, it allowed me to grow. Speaking of which, I have to thank all of you for allowing me to break through to the 9th heaven's realm in such a short time. Take your own lives as a token of my gratitude to you. Qin Feiyang said. Good, good, good. You're amazing. But don't forget. It's because we're in the underworld king's hell that we can't display our full strength. That's why you have the right to be arrogant. The red-clothed young man shouted. Only now? When I was in the divine land, I didn't see you guys that powerful. The white-eyed wolf laughed mockingly. Whoosh! All the ancestral dragons looked at the white-eyed wolf with cold glints flickering in their eyes. What are you looking at? Isn't that the truth? Initially, in the North Sea, all 10 of you ancestral dragons were mobilized. The revered dragon even personally took action. But in the end, all of you were seriously injured. Later, you pretended to be Lin Yi's master in the plains outside the Dragon God mountain range and lured us into a trap. But in the end, you reaped what you sowed and lost 4 heaven-defying divine artifacts. After that, we fought in the inland sea. I would like to ask, when have you ever won against us? Even if you only win once, I admit that you're good. But do you have it? The white-eyed wolf looked at the 7 of them playfully. Nonsense. Back in the inland sea, if it weren't for Qin Batian activating the law of time and space to save you, would you be able to escape alive? The red-clothed young man roared. But that time, you lost 6 heaven-defying divine artifacts, while we escaped safely. Isn't this a victory for us? The white-eyed wolf said. The red-clothed young man stared at the white-eyed wolf with anger rising in his eyes. Where did this wolf cub come from? Not only does he know everything, but he also seems to be more arrogant than Qin Feiyang. Don't dawdle. Hurry up and kill yourself. We still have to go to the mythical forest. The white-eyed wolf waved his claws and said. The ancestral dragons looked at each other with a murderous glint in their eyes. Boom! Almost at the same time. They unlocked their suppressed cultivation. Half-step immortal realm, first stage immortal realm, first stage immortal realm, first stage immortal realm. In the blink of an eye, they recovered their first stage immortal realm cultivation. The power of the Nether King Hell's laws also descended. But the 7 ancestral dragons turned a blind eye to the rule force and went straight to Qin Feiyang. Their terrifying aura destroyed all directions. Obviously, they wanted to kill Qin Feiyang before the rule force descended. A bunch of stupid things. Qin Feiyang's face was full of ridicule, as if he had already expected such a thing to happen. Swish! He retreated like a bolt of lightning. Although his speed couldn't be compared to the current 7 ancestral dragons, the rule force descended very quickly. As long as he dodged a little, the 7 ancestral dragons would be obliterated by the rule force. Die! The 7 ancestral dragons chased after him with a strong cold light in their eyes. Soon, they would be able to kill Qin Feiyang. But at that moment, the power of the rules crashed down. Ah! Accompanied by a miserable scream, the 7 of them were immediately obliterated by the rule force. Aren't you courting death? The white-eyed wolf shook his head. When the rule force dissipated, Qin Feiyang stopped in the void and looked coldly at the place where the 7 ancestral dragons disappeared before looking at Yi Zhong below. Yi Zhong sighed and said, "You don't have to do it, this old man will do it myself. I didn't say I was going to kill you. Moreover, if I were to make a move on you, I would really be deceiving my master and destroying my ancestors." Qin Feiyang said. "Don't say such nice words." Yi Zhong shook his head. "I'm serious. There is a good saying, a teacher for a day, a father for life. Although in today's world, this sentence is a bit exaggerated, in my eyes, you've never been an enemy. It's still the same sentence, my door is always open for you." Qin Feiyang said. Yi Zhong was silent. But in the end, he still chose to end his own life. Boom! The old man's body suddenly exploded in the void, and a terrifying wave of air instantly flooded all directions. He self-destructed and died. Seeing that the situation was bad, the Beast Emperor and Wang Ming quickly rushed in front of Qin Feiyang and released their divine power to block that terrifying wave of air. Sigh. Qin Feiyang stood in front of the wind and couldn't help but sigh. Why were they so stubborn? No matter how he tried to persuade them, it was useless. Were the dragons really so good that they were worth risking their lives for? Suddenly, Qin Feiyang looked at the Beast Emperor and asked, "Do you know if Yi Zhong and Long Zun have any special relationship?" Special relationship? The Beast Emperor was stunned and shook his head. "I really don't know." Qin Feiyang asked suspiciously, "Then how did he and Long Zun know each other?" The Beast Emperor thought for a moment and said with a smile, "Speaking of which, there are many stories." "What stories?" Hearing this, the madman and the white-eyed wolf immediately looked at the Beast Emperor curiously. The Beast Emperor said, I heard that when Yi Zhong was young, he pursued Long Zun. What? Qin Feiyang, the madman, and the white-eyed wolf looked at each other. This was really big news. That was a long time ago. Yi Zhong and Long Zun were still young, just like you guys are now. And at that time, Long Zun hadn't married the dragon god yet. It is said that at that time, Long Zun turned into human form and entered the mortal world to train, and met Yi Zhong. At first, they were still a pair of enemies. They fought whenever they saw each other because they didn't like each other. But as time passed, Yi Zhong seemed to have slowly fallen in love with her. However, because Long Zun deliberately hid it, Yi Zhong didn't know that Long Zun was a divine dragon. And because of his personality, Yi Zhong didn't confess. And then, Long Zun and the dragon god married, gave birth to a son and a daughter, and became the leader of the dragons. It is said that at that time, Yi Zhong was still upset for a long time. Then one day, Long Zun finally discovered Yi Zhong's feelings for her. Perhaps because she felt guilty, Long Zun gave Yi Zhong a lot of resources, as well as unparalleled power and status. And the Dragon God Palace was founded by Yi Zhong at that time. The following situation is as you can see, Yi Zhong has been following Long Zun. Long Zun is also very good to Yi Zhong. And the degree of trust she has in him is even higher than the great ancestral dragons. The Beast Emperor said. Qin Feiyang and the others were stunned and couldn't say a word for a long time. After all this time, Yi Zhong was protecting his beloved woman? The madman looked at the Beast Emperor and asked, "Are you sure this is true?" Whether it is true or not, the Beast Emperor pondered for a while and shook his head. Whether it is true or not, this emperor is really not sure, but all the great ancestral dragons said so. Qin Feiyang said, "Then have you asked Yi Zhong himself?" "Yes." But Yi Zhong didn't mention a word about this. Long Zun has never mentioned this matter either. The Beast Emperor said. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while and said, "It should be close. If that is the case, then convincing Yi Zhong will be more difficult than we imagined." The madman said. Qin Feiyang nodded. "I didn't expect this old man to be such a loyal person." The white-eyed wolf's eyes flickered as if he had discovered a new continent. "We can't make a conclusion too early. When there is a chance, let's find Yi Zhong and ask him about it. Next, let's prepare to enter the God-Fiend Forest." Qin Feiyang looked at the God-Fiend Forest. This was a place they had to enter. If he could comprehend another nomological law, he would undoubtedly be more confident when facing Ice Dragon and Small Beast in the future. "What about the others?" Wang Ming asked. "The others?" Qin Feiyang was stunned. "There must be some people who haven't rushed to the God-Fiend Forest. Should we take the opportunity to catch them all?" Wang Ming said. Qin Feiyang nodded in realization and waved his hand. "There's no need for that." With that said, Qin Feiyang looked at the surrounding mountains and rivers. He was more concerned about the hidden supreme experts. Where would these people be hiding? "Old witch, little fiend, do you feel that Qin Feiyang seems to know that we are hiding nearby?" The straw sandals old man frowned. "How is that possible?" The old woman in green shook her head. "No. Look at him now. He seems to be looking for something." "I think so. Even if he doesn't know that it's us, he must have guessed that there are people nearby." The straw sandals old man said in a deep voice. The old woman in green and little fiend frowned. Looking at Qin Feiyang's current expression, that was indeed the case. Chapter 27-22. Wait. Suddenly, Little Devil Child reached out his hand and asked, "Don't you think it strange?" "What's strange?" The two old men looked at him in surprise. The Nether King's ferocious beasts are spreading the news that the forest of gods and demons has a heaven-defying treasure and the power of laws. Don't you think it's a conspiracy? Little Devil Child frowned. A conspiracy? The eyes of the two old men trembled. You mean to say that Qin Feiyang is the one controlling all of this, and Qin Feiyang's goal is to kill all of these people? The old woman asked in surprise. I don't know. But I have a feeling that the truth isn't as simple as it seems. Little Devil Child shook his head, his eyes flashing. Above the plain, Qin Feiyang adjusted his state and looked at the forest of gods and demons again. Let's go. The Beast Emperor said, then I'll wait for you at the square. Okay. Qin Feiyang nodded. Whoosh. The Beast Emperor immediately turned into a stream of light and landed on the bluestone path, then disappeared into the forest of gods and demons. Let's go. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and led Madman, White-Eyed Wolf, and Wang Ming into the forest of gods and demons without looking back. But just as Qin Feiyang and the others entered the forest of gods and demons, a blood-haired youth came and landed above the plain. This person was Li Feng. The flesh and blood essence of 1,000,000 people, this can't be wasted. Li Feng, hurry up and absorb it. These people are all at the ultimate God and 9 heavens realm. Absorb their flesh and blood essence and it'll be enough for you to enter the 9 heavens realm. Sanguis immediately appeared beside him and roared excitedly. Okay. Li Feng nodded and looked at Qin Feiyang's back. He landed in the middle of the plain and absorbed it crazily. The flesh and blood around him turned into blood qi and rushed into his body. What? He's absorbing the flesh and blood essence of these people? When the old woman and the others saw this, their pupils constricted. However, Qin Feiyang and the others who had entered the mythical forest did not notice it at all. Because the moment they entered the divine demon forest, everything outside seemed to have been cut off. He couldn't hear any sounds from the outside, nor could he sense any aura from the outside. This place is indeed a domain of its own. Madman scanned the area in front of him, his eyes filled with surprise. There were clusters of ancient trees and vines everywhere. Thick piles of dead branches and rotten leaves were piled up on the ground. The surroundings were also deathly silent. At a glance, the entire forest was filled with a cold and mysterious aura. The Beast Emperor said that the forest of gods and devils is shrouded in an invisible force. One can only enter but not leave. Why can't I feel this power? The White-Eyed Wolf was suspicious. If you can't feel it, then feel it for yourself. Wang Ming smiled slightly, then turned around and raised his arm to reach out at the edge of the void. Immediately, his expression froze. Sure enough, his fingertip came into contact with an invisible force in the void. How is it? Qin Feiyang and the others also turned to look at Wang Ming. Yes. Wang Ming nodded. It can't be. The White-Eyed Wolf raised his paw skeptically and reached into the void. In the end, his expression froze. There was indeed an invisible force in the void. When did Li Feng and Blood Spirit appear? Suddenly. Yang Li exclaimed. Li Feng? Hearing that, everyone raised their heads to look at the plains and was stunned. This brat really doesn't learn. Seeing that Li Feng was absorbing the essence of the flesh and blood, Wang Ming couldn't help but frown. Let him be. Qin Feiyang said indifferently. He also stretched out his hand and pressed against the invisible force in the air. This invisible force was colorless and had no aura. If one didn't know beforehand, even if they stood in front of it, they wouldn't discover it. For living beings who didn't want to enter the divine demon forest, it was truly a fatal trap. Because by the time they discovered this invisible force, they would already be in the divine demon forest and wouldn't be able to leave. Since we're here, let's take things as they come. Let's go, let's go. Madman urged. Not only were they not afraid at all, they were full of anticipation for the unknown divine demon forest. Right away, Qin Feiyang, Madman and the white-eyed wolf turned and strode forward. "Let's go too." Yang Li looked at Wang Ming and said. "But Li Feng," Wang Ming frowned. "Are you stupid? Can't you tell?" Yang Li shook his head. Wang Ming was slightly stunned and turned to look at Yang Li suspiciously. "What do you mean?" "Then let me ask you first. What was young master's reaction when he saw this scene?" Yang Li said. "Aren't you asking the obvious? Didn't you see that young master's reaction was very calm just now?" Wang Ming rolled his eyes. "Then let me ask you again. Why didn't young master burn the mountain of corpses and sea of blood before entering the divine demon forest?" Yang Li asked again. Maybe he forgot." Wang Ming hesitated. "Forgot?" Yang Li shook his head and patted Wang Ming on the shoulder. "Brother, you've been with young master for so long. Why don't you understand him at all?" With that said, Yang Li descended toward Qin Feiyang and the rest. Wang Ming was stunned. He glanced at Sanguis and Li Feng before turning to catch up with Yang Li and whispering, "Can you make it clear?" "It's very simple. Young master deliberately left this for Li Feng." Yang Li said telepathically. "What?" Wang Ming was shocked. In other words, young master knew that Sanguis and Li Feng were hiding nearby. Although young master was somewhat dissatisfied with Li Feng's actions, since these people were already dead, it would be a waste to burn them. He might as well fulfill Li Feng's wish. Yang Li said to himself. "I see." Wang Ming was enlightened. "So, you have to carefully consider young master's thoughts in the future." Yang Li said. "Yes." Wang Ming nodded. An hour later, Qin Feiyang and the rest were already tens of thousands of miles deep into the divine demon forest. Given their speed, it was naturally impossible for them to be so slow. After all, given their cultivation, it would only take them a short while to cross tens of thousands of miles. This was because they did not dare to move too quickly. This was because they knew nothing about this place. If they were not careful and encountered danger, they would not be able to think of a way to deal with it immediately. Furthermore, in this divine demon forest, they could not fly and could only move forward on foot. However, they did not know if it was because they were lucky that they had not encountered any danger until now. However, when the group passed by a small valley, they realized that there were many footprints at the entrance of the valley. "Why are there footprints?" The white-eyed wolf was astonished. "Are you stupid? As early as the second day when we arrived at the plains, more than 100 people entered the divine demon forest. Furthermore, there were also many people who escaped into the divine demon forest previously. I noticed at that time and estimated that there were at least 50 to 60,000 people." The lunatic said. "So many? I really didn't notice. It seems that even if we enter the divine demon forest, we won't be too bored." The white-eyed wolf laughed sinisterly and swaggered into the valley. Qin Feiyang and the rest exchanged glances and followed in. The valley was about a few miles long and was filled with gravel and weeds. However, they did not find any traces of people in the valley. However, there were still many footprints on the ground. These footprints were messy and disorderly, as if they were left behind by a hasty escape. Qin Feiyang and the rest followed the footprints and searched all the way. In the end, they found a crack that was several meters wide at the back of the valley. In the crack, more than 30 people were huddled together, pale and trembling. They seemed to be very scared. The white-eyed wolf walked to the crack and the 30 people laughed. "What are you hiding here for? Don't kill us, we really know that we were wrong, please give us a way out." Dozens of people looked at Qin Feiyang and the rest and begged. Qin Feiyang and the rest were stunned. They thought that these people were so scared because they had encountered something terrifying in the divine demon forest. They did not expect that it was because they had discovered them that they had fled and hid here. However, Qin Feiyang did not know that in the eyes of these people, he was even more terrifying than the divine demon forest. In their eyes, Qin Feiyang could be described as a devil. He had killed millions of people in one fell swoop. This person's terrifying means was unprecedented and could be said to be shocking. The white-eyed wolf came back to his senses, bared his teeth, and said, "Who do you think you are? We won't kill you just because we said so. Then what do you want?" One of the burly men said with a bitter face. "What do you think? I believe you also know our means. For people like you who take the initiative to court death, we will definitely not be polite," the white-eyed wolf said. Hearing this, dozens of people curled up in the crack, their faces full of despair. "Enough." Qin Feiyang glared at the white-eyed wolf and looked at the dozens of people. "I don't want to talk about the past anymore. Let me ask you, you have been in the divine demon forest for so long, did you encounter any danger? You really won't kill us?" The dozens of people stared at Qin Feiyang in a daze. "Yes." Qin Feiyang nodded. Thank you." The group of people was grateful and climbed out of the mountain one after another. The burly man took a deep breath and looked respectfully at Qin Feiyang and replied, "We encountered danger." Qin Feiyang and the others looked at each other. Frenzy said, "What danger?" "Not long after we entered the divine demon forest, we encountered 3 giant beasts. Their strength is simply too strong. At that time, there were more than 2,000 of us together. But even if we joined forces, we could not defeat them." The burly man's face was full of fear. "That's right. They all had supreme-level deity techniques and deity artifacts, and they were extremely strong. More than 2,000 people were swallowed alive by them, and only the few of us managed to escape. It's too terrifying. If I had known, even if I died outside, would not have come to the divine demon forest." The 30-odd people all had terrified looks on their faces. "Giant beasts," Qin Feiyang muttered. It seemed that what the Beast Emperor said was true. They could not be careless in the divine demon forest. Otherwise, if they were not careful, they would die here. You're tuning into the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.